to Comics Cast, Let It Out. And I want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, especially my mom. It is Mother's Day here in America, but we have a treat for you guys today. We actually have two, should I say, blokes from the UK that are going to be joining us. It's going to be a treat. But before we get to that, I want to tell everybody a little bit about what Comics Cast is. Comics Cast is all about the indie creator. If you're in the indie comic community, we want you on the show. Whether you're a penciler, an inker, publisher, editor-in-chief, may I dare say, we want you to be on the show. And that's what Let It Out is about. It's more of an intimate setting where we do a draw and talk. We do have a drawing component where you get to see the magic happen live. And today we have, like I said, two guests from across the pond. We got Shane Chebsey, hopefully I didn't butcher his name, as well as Chris Geary. And they're bringing indie talent like to the nines. They are just so talented, and it's our pleasure to have them here on the show. So that being said, let's kick it off. So Comics Cast coming at you on May 8th. Happy Mother's Day. Here we go. Oh, how are my friends from the UK doing? Shane, Chris, say hello to our audience.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, audience.
Yes, I can hear you great. We like with all of our shows, we have a little bit of like just down to the wires type stuff. And today was no exception. But the important thing is we have you all here. So I'm gonna move myself here down to the bottom because I want you guys to be on the top. So like I said, we have Chris Geary, we have Shane Chebsey from the UK. I want to welcome you guys both, and let me get a few things out in the open first. And so what I'm going to do is, if you go into the comments field, if you're joining us, I'm going to put in the chat field. First of all, we have this, and this is how you can follow Shane. So note this, it'll be in the comment field. Obviously, you cannot click on it right now because it's not touchscreen here. But I want everybody to note these social media handles. And I would love for you to like, follow, subscribe. Make sure you give them lots of love. And it'll be in the chat area, so you can copy and paste it there. I will probably put it there at the end of the show as well. So this is Shane. And let me get Chris up here. Hold on one moment. I am having to be I've been flying solo. I haven't had a co-host in a bit, but I think I'm doing all right here. So here we go. This is how you can follow Chris. And Chris, I added your portfolio section because I think when people see your portfolio, it's quite impressive. All right, so that's, again, it'll be at the top of the comments area, chat area, and I'll put it there at the end of the show as well. So there you go. All right, so let's jump right into it. I sort of gave a brief overview in terms of how awesome you guys are in terms of being our brothers from across the pond, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. I want to hear it from you, you both. So let me actually move this. Oops, let me move Shane over here. Got the magic of internet here. So here we go into the segment of that we call the origin story. Now, the origin story is where I hand the mic over to our audience, and we were looking at all these PDFs, these wonderful PDFs that showed that demonstrate all the wonderful talent and skill that our guests have. I have them ready to go, and I'm going to hand the mic over to you first, Shane. And I would just like to hear your origin story. It's basically, how you became a hero. I'm going to preface it with this, and I think Chris liked this little approach. You are not an artist per se, but I'm going to say that you are the Nick Fury. I'm going to call you Nick Fury because you are the editor-in-chief. You're the publisher of Scratch Comics. You put together the team. You assemble the teams that put together the wonderful content. So Nick Fury, the mic is in your hands. Tell us the story. Tell us your origin story. Here we go.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Joe. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to see you as well, Chris. We don't see each other very much, do we?
No, good to see you too.
But yeah, it's interesting actually. You say about an origin story. I feel like I should be, have a cigar in my hand or something while I'm telling the story.
Eye patch. You need an eye patch.
Yeah, and an eye patch. Yeah, and some hair maybe. But Yeah, it's interesting you said, I'm not an artist per se, because I got into comics wanting to be an artist. That was because I trained as an illustrator. So I always wanted to be a comic artist. But at school, it was always, if you want to be a comic, job doesn't exist. There's no job in comics, when I was a kid. You just told, well, have you thought about a career in law enforcement?
Well, that's why you're Nick Fury. You're Nick
there
Fury.
You go. Yeah. Straight down to Shield. Yeah. So apparently I would have been good at that according to the, the profile. It's weird because in my day job now, I do investigations, but not law investigations. I do scientific investigations because I'm a microbiologist, but that's my other life. But I always wanted to be a comic artist. And I was drawing comics since I could hold a pencil. I love comics. I got into comics when my cousin gave me a load of old British reprints of Planet of the Apes, Mighty World of Marvel, which was like the Kirby Hulks, the Ditko Spider-Man, Bollywood Daredevils, all of that stuff. So I was introduced to some of the best comics ever, when I was a kid, and I just loved it all. So I was hooked. And but it wasn't until I was about 21 that I started to actually self-publish. But that's a long time ago now. That's 1994. I think I published my first comic. And I knew nothing about how to publish a comic, how to put it together. There wasn't any such thing as Facebook or the internet or anything like that. So we just used to staple stuff. I used to get all my friends together in the local area and we'd staple comics together, It was good fun. It's very, I don't know if you guys ever done that, but it was very much a sort of hands-on approach.
Yes. It's we would call that homebrew comics. That's homebrew comics where you use a copier machine. I think back in the day for me it was like Kinko's. You go to a copy shop and just copy all your things and then just staple it together. It doesn't get any more real or than that. That is so cool. Yeah.
I used to love that process, and then I did that for a long time. But eventually I met up with a good guy called Andrew Richmond. And it wasn't in the 19, it was 2004, I think it was. We formed Scar Comics. So it was Shane Chebsey, Andrew Richmond, SCAR, Scar. That was the name. It's very fortuitous. It was fate, It must have been fate. And we published comics from 2004 until just last year. We had we did some great stuff. I was very, very proud of it. All of this time, all over the years, I've been doing that and learning a lot while I was doing it. And meeting lots of artists. Running comic conventions as well is something I did from 2006. So I've been running conventions for 17 years now. So doing all that and meeting all these artists and writers, and you start to sort of form a large list of people that that you respect, that you always want to work with, So after publishing a few books the old-fashioned way, i.e. put them out there and hoping they sell, we did a Kickstarter for Dead by Dawn just a year ago, and it was successful. And that was working with some amazing artists, some of which you've shown on the screen. Yes. Actually, that one there is Steve Pugh, coloured by Matt Hollingsworth. Absolutely top-notch stuff. Yeah,
mind-blowing.
Yeah, beautiful work. And just to be able to publish people like that it really is an honour, But what the idea behind it was to give creators a format where they've got 4 pages to tell a story. So I think there's a certain discipline to that. And the idea behind Dead by Dawn was, we love horror comics, but we want to give creators an opportunity to do something like that. And a lot of people rose to the challenge, and I'm really proud of what we did with that. I'm really fast forwarding through my origin story. I know I've just gone through about 25 years, but I've missed a lot out. But I've got to the important parts,
Well, I think with this is that throughout the show, we'll be able to spice up hear more of your origin story. And I think this was an excellent story because, like I did mention, you are going to be like the Nick Fury for Scratch Comics here. And you can see that all of your artists and the writers that, I haven't read the book. I'm going to say that it was successfully crowdfunded, and you just have such a variety of things. And, you mentioned, or I don't know if you mentioned, but we talked about this during the pre-shows, that this was a horror comic anthology. Mm-hmm. And I've just seen all sorts of, even from a horror standpoint, which is, it's a great genre in itself. But, as I've been flipping through these, you're hitting like all sorts of like time periods as well as genres within genres. The science fiction horror aspect. We have modern day, like a modern day setting for a lot of these things. Oops, we don't want to talk about Hedrek yet. We have and the graphic styles.
Even I mean, that's Mark Stafford. That's Mark Stafford, who is one of the greatest cartoonists I've ever met. To be honest, he's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I will take your word for it, because I'm just looking at this, and it's proof. The proof is in the pudding here. It's like, look at this. It's like even not confining it to traditional like sequential panels. Having it break down. It has kind of like a. If you were to take out the lettering part of it, this could be like if you had a prose like fairy tale, and how they would have like a passage on the right which just talks about just straight up words, and then the other side there'll be like a supporting illustration. This would fit in that context, but just really brilliant artwork. And I could just see your eye for finding talent to tell this anthology is just incredible. We're looking at lettering, coloring, inking, pencil, the whole nine. Everything that I've seen thus far, and it's such a pleasure for me to share this with our audience, is just amazing. It's nothing unexciting or not attention grabbing in any of these panels. It's definitely a page turner.
That was definitely the intention. We wanted people to be blown away by it. That story that we've got on the screen there, Stephen, his art is great, and he's from the world of television. He does production design, so he's got a great sense of design. He's got a great sense of color, and his storytelling as well is absolutely exquisite.
Yeah, and I could just tell by when you mentioned that experience in terms of like, because it does read like a storyboard for like a television or a cinematic pilot, and just these unique ways of handling these establishing shots, the camera angles handled masterfully. And I think this being a horror comic, it just adds to that additional level of suspense to it. And like I was saying, it's definitely a page turner, but maybe as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, do I want to turn the page? I might like scare myself out of my my head here. But yeah, so this is just really cool stuff. We're gonna try and revisit this. This is the thing that I was telling you. This is science fiction horror, and it has even like, I like the whole like retro Flash Gordon style to it. Yeah. But it has like, when you see stuff like this, I was like, wow, this is like straight up alien horror, like Ridley Scott, like, stuff. But yeah, it blew my mind, and these colors so rich. And if you're a fan of the horror genre, I definitely. So can this be picked up still? I know this was already successful.
There are a few copies left. It did go really well. It went, it sold really well, Dead by Dawn. And the copies that I have left, that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
That isn't a sales pitch. Remember, I'm gonna put Shane's social media handles again up at they're at the top of the comment field. But we will revisit that at the end of the show too. So if you want to get your hands on these, ultra rare, soon to be ultra rare. There's only a few more editions left, unless he decides to do maybe a remaster, or maybe when Dead by Dawn, Kickstarter. If there's going to be another crowdfunding, if maybe when Volume 2 is done, if you're going to do that, maybe there'll be an opportunity for a reprint. But show some love to Shane. Let him know that you want those last few copies of Dead by Dawn. But we were talking about your eye for talent, being the Nick Fury guy that you are. I think we've got a good preview of the kind of artists that you've already recruited for Dead by Dawn. You've recruited somebody else. You brought in another talent, and surprise, surprise, we got Mr. Chris Geary here. And before we tell that story about how you guys connected, I would like to hear Chris tell his origin story too. So, Chris, the mic is now in your hands. Let's hear about your humble beginnings.
Okay. Well, it's quite, in a way, sort of similar to most people involved in comics, but I have a bit of a slower start in the fact that I actually wasn't allowed to have comics when I was younger.
What?
So, yeah,
Oh.
I just wasn't allowed to read them at all. So the sort of first art that I was exposed to was like Arthur Rackham, and like the sort of I had a few fairy tale books that he'd done, and some like Aesop's fables and stuff like that. So
Big
that's
fan of
my
that
sort
guy.
of first. Yes, that's my sort of my ground zero in terms of sort of being exposed to art. And then alongside that, then E.H. Shepard, who did the Winnie the Pooh books. And so that's what I wanted to do when I was younger. I wanted to be a book illustrator in that way. And because, not being the greatest brain in the world, I thought that Arthur Rackham actually wrote and drew all the stories as well. So I thought that's the job for me. I could get to write and get to draw, and that's it.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, and that's basically the thing I was going to do. But then, weirdly enough, I had a few other comics sort of turn up. I had a few sort of Beanos and stuff like that, which I was able to read at my friends' houses and things like that. Then, randomly, somebody that Mum worked with gave her a couple of annuals. Like one was a TV 21 annual from 1969, which was from way before when I was born. But because it was Thunderbirds based and things like that, I sort of read it and loved it. And it was just like, this is fantastic. But also liked the whole thing. I liked the whole world creation of it as well. Like it wasn't just comics, it was articles. It was like fake magazine articles or book, reports or whatever. There was schematics for, machinery and things like that. Like it was a whole exploration of the Jerry Anderson world, which I only knew really from a little bit of Thunderbirds, because at the time that actually wasn't being shown. So I knew of it and knew of Captain Scarlet, but didn't really know the shows that well. Right. It was like fascinated. But there was this one particular strip that was called Agent 21. It was like a 6-page story, and so that to me is my Rosetta Stone of stories, of like comics. It's like if I could draw that all the time, great, life would be amazing. And then alongside that, randomly, I was given a Buck Rogers annual that had an old story from like the 50s in it that was drawn by Al Williamson. Not Al Williamson, but Al McWilliamson.
Al Williamson. Know that name.
Yeah.
Know that name.
But then also it had a new story that was based around the TV show. So this was like when the old TV show had come out, like with I forgot what his name is now, but the one that was in the early 80s.
Gil Gerard.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So there was a story that was very old in that from the 50s, and then there was a Gil Gerard story in there as well. And for years, quite a few years, they were the only comics that I had. And then the only time I was actually allowed comics was when I went on holiday. I was allowed to go to newsagents and buy a magazine called Look-In, which was like a TV tie-in magazine, had lots of licenses. Like, so it would be The Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man, or it had Magnum, and other, licensed strips would be part of it. So it was the only time I ever got to read comics. Was like 2 weeks a year, I would have one comic that I would just, devour. And then this one particular year,
you poor guy. I feel like I keep on going.
Yeah, so people want to get social services, but so basically, this one particular year, I was given like however much money it cost to get a comic, and then told to go and get Look-In before we had to then go to Spain. I think it was Spain that year, and so I just scampered off to the nearest newsagents, and then came across this comic that had robots on the front, and it was called Transformers. And I was just like,
oh, here we go.
I like robots. But again, my only sort of reference for robots was actually the cover to that Queen album, News of the World, which has the big robot on the front, like, holding the band, which is based on an old like pulp cover. So again, it was just like, I knew that album. I knew that was a big robot, and I like big robots. I saw there was a big robot in this comic, and I was just like, it's the same size and shape as Look-In. Mum will never know. So I then bought that instead of buying Look-In. And then managed to sort of like, bluff it, into my suitcase, and we went on holiday. Completely wrecked that comic over the course of 2 weeks. Like, it literally fell apart as I was reading it, and that. And also, weirdly enough,
that's appreciating it. That is appreciating comic.
Yeah. And also back then, because the Transformers itself was like, over here was a reprint, like partially a reprint of the American stuff, but also new stories that were generated by English creators as well. So that particular issue was by English creators, but also it had articles and stuff in it as well. It wasn't just a strict comic. It was like a look in. It was like the TV 21. So again, my reference to comics is that it's an all-encompassing thing. It's not just story, start to finish. And so, so I was like, this is amazing. And then realized it was a 2 week, like every 2 weeks an issue would come out. So essentially saved the money over my 2 weeks of not buying sweets over that holiday. So I knew I had enough money then to come back and buy
I am calling social services. You are denied comics.
Comics save your teeth.
And you maybe that's it. But you're denying yourself sweets too. Oh my gosh. But keep on going. Keep on going.
So then, but this is where it takes a tragic turn. So then basically, it was issue 11 was what I bought before the holiday. So I get back to the newsagents, like same newsagents. I get issue 12, and then come home, put it down, make myself a cup of tea, get myself a biscuit, and I'm like, I'm going to read this. I've been waiting 2 weeks to read this. Then I come back and the comic's gone. I was like, what? The comics? So I was like, spent a little while hunting around for it, and then she said to Mum, like, where's my comic? She goes, oh, that rubbish. I got rid of it. And I was like, what do you mean you got rid of it? And she said, I thought it was rubbish. I thought you didn't want to keep it. I said, I've only just bought it. And then it was gone. It was like literally, not only was it not in the bin in the house, it had gone to the general bin at the end of the street. It was like Mum had never removed rubbish from the house so quickly.
Oh my gosh.
So it's completely gone.
And
you know what? I'm gonna forgive her because it is Mother's Day here in the United States. So I was not ready to write a letter to her and say, how could you throw it? I thought you were gonna tell me it was put in an incinerator and it was burned. But,
well, it really was. A few days later.
Thing. Yeah. Oh my god. All right, keep on going. Keep on going.
Yeah. So then I was just like, okay, fair enough. No more comics for me then. And then forgot all about it really. And then it wasn't until a couple of years later, or maybe it was a bit less later, but Transformers itself switched from being fortnightly to being weekly. And he then started running adverts on television, which was very rare at the time. But I think because it was a toy and it was linked in with a cartoon, that they had a budget to advertise comics. And it was like now in full colour, now weekly and all that sort of stuff. And then two friends of mine at school were talking about it. And I was like, I know Transformers, but I didn't know the story they were talking about. It felt very left out. And so then I thought, right, next issue I'm going to buy. And I'm going to talk about the Transformers to them. So I go buy the comic, read it, memorize it, all that sort of stuff. I go to talk to them about it. They're like, "Oh, we didn't buy that anymore." And I'm like, "What do you mean? It was last week." It's like, it was like it was old news. Yeah, they were just like, "Yeah, we're not interested in that. We've grown up out of that." And I'm like, "It was a week ago." But
I think the world is conspiring against you. What is up with that? That's just terrible.
So then I was just like, "Oh, fair enough." But I liked it anyway because I only really read it out of peer pressure and out of spite. Was just like, I want to be part of the conversation, but I actually enjoyed it and then ended up collecting it from that point on, or reading. I wouldn't say actually collected, but I sort of read it from that point on. And then was just like, yeah, I like this. And then and again, thinking more about the future because I was a grand old age of 11 and planning, retirement. So it's just like, okay, I need to focus on a career and do all this sort of stuff. I thought, I actually want to do comics now because I sort of realized that the storytelling potential on a comics page was more than 1 page every 4 on a traditional illustrated book. I was just like, you get 6 pages, like you get 6 images a page, as opposed to just 1 every 4 pages. I was like, you can tell more stories. I thought, I'm just going to do comics from now on. And I thought, but I don't really read comics except for the 3 that I've now read. So I should really learn comics. So then I thought I need to buy more comics. So then was sort of like managed to lobby my mum for an extra pocket money. And then at the time, Marvel UK were reprinting Secret Wars and Spider-Man.
Yes.
And it was called Spider-Man and Zoids. And I was just like, well, Spider-Man and Zoids, I know, because I've got those toys. I'll buy that. So then that at the time was reprinting the Ron Friends run of Spider-Man. So it was like the origin of the black thing. It had like Puma was introduced in that run. Yeah. So that to me is my favorite version of Spider-Man. I know people hate me for it because everyone loves Pluto and everything. But to me, that's the Spider-Man that I first read. And And it's just like, and it's one that I keep going back to even as a grumpy old man. It's the one that I still go back to and just like, this is comics. This is how comics should be made. They're nice and clear, and it's just, you know, everyone knows what's going on. So yeah, so it's one of those things where I actually started reading comics so I could learn how to make comics. And then I did the thing of where they were advertising how to draw comics the Marvel way. And there was actually a competition where you could win a copy. So I entered the competition to win the copy, and I didn't win. But I was sort of waving it in front of Mum, just like, look, you can learn how to draw. I like drawing. And Mum did the casual thing of, yeah, whatever, go away. But then that turned up as a Christmas present. Like, and I was like, she was listening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I am definitely ripping up that letter that I was going to send to her. Now like, she's supporting you. She's supporting.
Yeah. So
like,
so like best Christmas ever. So then I sort of spent basically that from that moment on that I opened it to when I went back to school of drawing, and was like, you know, tried to redraw the book and everything like that, and was absolutely terrible. Couldn't really figure out why, because I was following the book, so therefore I should be genius, but no, it just wasn't working. So then was just thought I just need to practice again and again and again, and decided at that point, this is where the crazy really kicks in, is that as I was now almost 12, I'd wasted my entire life not drawing and not devoting myself, so I need to really step up my game. So then decided to get up an extra hour or so before school so I could practice more. And then then was just drawing for an hour or so before school, going to school, ignoring the teachers, coming back, and then drawing. And that basically from that point on was just comics was totally my life. And then when I was 16, this is me cutting the story short, by the way. So then when I was 16, I then, instead of studying for my exams, we went on study leave, like at May over here. It's like you have exams in the summer, but in May, you actually stop going to school, where you actually focus on revising for your subjects to come up. So day one of where I should be revising, I decided to take what drawings I had and went to Marvel UK's offices in London and just walked in there and said, can I show my work to anyone? And instead of being kicked out,
you just walked into the store.
Yeah, like I said, crazy. So instead of being kicked out, this incredibly lovely woman basically gave me a sheet of paper and said, we haven't got anyone that can see you today, but here's the name of an editor and here's our full address, send some work in, and we'll get back to you whenever we can. And I was like, oh, thank you very much, lovely lady, and just sort of scampered out, and that's it. So then worked on a sample, like a Spider-Man sample, which I did send you. So this isn't it, actually. This is another one.
Okay, yeah. I just want to preface this is that this what I'm showing right now is stuff. This is fresh. This is just examples of well, fresh for me, but it's actually a copy. These are Chris's Marvel submissions. So I want our audience to check these out, because what I showed earlier was that's his new style. And he has many styles that he can emulate. But I wanted to show this stuff because this is really showing what an ambitious young lad can do. You know, when everybody else is doing something else, he's waking up at the crack of dawn practicing stuff. And if this isn't inspirational, this is the stuff that he did. You said when you were like 16, like when you were.
No, this is older. I could lie and say this was when I was 16. But there is
even older.
Yeah, no. I was older. So, but there was stuff.
Oh, you were older. Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're
but there was stuff that the stuff that I did when I was 16, I did send you as well. So if you go through, there is.
We'll go through that. Yeah, I'll go through that as well. But I just want to show this stuff. So you can keep on. It's not going to be chronological, but I wanted to go through these real quick, and I'm going to show some of the other artwork. Keep on talking. Keep on telling your story.
So I basically did a sample, like a Spider-Man sample, and then sent it off, and then and basically they were, and it was like the advice was, if you haven't heard anything between 4 to 6 months, then consider it terrible, and then then do another sample. And so I sort of like did it, sent it off on a Thursday. Then on a Friday morning, got a phone call from this editor, who then said, "Would you like to go through your portfolio?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So I sort of like very squeaky, taken off guard again, 16-year-old, but like 16 and a half. And so then he went through, spent an hour going through these 4 pages, and was very complimentary. Sort of like said they're good and terrible at the same time. Said he could understand my storytelling, but obviously everything else needs a lot of work. Even suggested I should be a writer until I can draw better, like as a way of practicing my craft. That I should, like be a writer, because he said my storytelling sense was actually very good for someone who hadn't worked. And I didn't tell him I was 16 as well. I was actually afraid to say how old I was in case he like hung up the phone or arrested me or something. So I just like tried to put on as deep a voice as I could and just sort of like plow through the conversation.
Hi, I am Chris, and
then,
here's my art.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so then did that, and then he said, send me some more work in 3 months, and we'll see how you go. I was like, thank you very much. So, oh, thank you very much. And then put the phone down. So then worked on another sample, which I think I scrapped, and then did another sample, which I then sent just after Christmas of that year. And then he then phoned me up again very quickly. I think within a week of that one. And he said, oh, I see you sent me some more work. Would you like to come in and talk about it? Like, this wasn't a phone call. This was come into the office. And I was just like, I am drawing X-Men. This is a job. Sort of like, this is how it works. You work hard enough, and this is how it works.
It's all in the mind, right? You know, if I'm, you know, it may be sample pages of the X-Men, but you know what? I am drawing the X-Men. There's no no doubt about that. Keep on going.
So,
I want to like.
So I sort of go, you know, powering into the office, and I have to say, like, full disclosure on being how nerdy and embarrassing I was. I actually went in wearing a suit, and like realized it was the worst thing you could do.
No, that is the best thing. I'm going to say that this. If anybody takes anything out of this, aside from how talented these two guys are, listen to what Chris is saying. It's all about the confidence and presentation. Even if you are 16 years old, or let's say you're 66 years old, it doesn't matter. But how you present yourself, that's getting your foot in the door. Your persistence and presentation, and then of course your polish on your, you know, whatever artwork that you're presenting. Yeah. That's lessons right there. So yeah, wear the suit. Own it. Yeah. That's you. So keep on going. I want to hear more of that story.
Yeah. So then he went through my portfolio again, and I took it with him. I took with me the other stuff that I sent him just as a reminder, and just to show how much I'd grown in 6 months. I hadn't, but it was just that thing of like you know, that Spider-Man from 6 months, that was rubbish. This RoboCop from now is amazing, isn't it? And he sort of was like, right. And then I can tell you about this as well in a bit, because it's a bit of an origin story with that. So this is actually what I sent. What's on screen now is what I drew when I was 16.
This
and
is what I sent. We're going a little backwards. We're showing like your current work, and then we're going back to like the early Chris art. But it's okay. So, we're doing Quinn. Keep on going.
Yeah, so no doubt tell McFarlane was actually drawing Spider-Man at the time.
Yeah.
So then, and again, I can explain the atrocious inking in this as well if you want. But again, that was the thing as well that I was told. It's just like, don't submit inks. Like, you need to submit pencils or inks or colors or letters. Yeah. You know, get good at one job, and then we'll let you do others if you're good enough at doing that. But I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, you know, and this was the sample. This was the second sample, actually, the RoboCop one.
Yes.
And then. So I sort of sent that off. I went to had a chat. He basically was just like, it's all right, but not great. But you're getting better. And then send me some more stuff. And so I did some more stuff, and then weirdly just didn't get any replies whatsoever. Like whether he moved on to a different department or whatever, I don't know. I mean, I actually know him now in real life since, so I've not yet had a chance to quiz him and just like, why did you never reply? But it's like.
Yeah.
No, but so then I sort of like ended up sending more stuff, and then also at the same time, Marvel UK started to branch out and do standard stuff that they were doing. Like, they were mainly doing reprints, they were doing licensed stuff, but then they started to launch their own line of like original superheroes and stuff like that. I think it was an anthology magazine called Overkill, although that may have been a bit later. But they then had a few things. So the sample here is for one of the characters which they had at the time, and I think it might have been Liam Sharp was drawing it, or was one of the first artists. I can't quite remember.
Gary Erskine did some stuff, didn't he, Chris?
Yeah, like, he did Knights of Pendragon.
Yeah.
And that came out, like, Knights of Pendragon actually came out in between me sending the two samples as well.
I see.
And then I did this story, and so like very much leaning on Jim Lee and things like that, and was
Yes.
told off for copying Jim Lee. And I was just like, everyone's copying Jim Lee. Don't
I know.
on me.
It's like,
Right.
Yeah. So then that was so basically that's what happened. And then sort of going into the change that I had was that
Yes.
as you can see here, I mean, it's quite fairly tightly penciled, and that at the time as well, for a few years, that my sort of references were Art Adams, George Perez, rest in peace,
Yeah.
and
Rest in peace.
Brian Bolland. And because I looked at their artwork and it's super tight, super detailed, and I was like, this is how comics should be done. This is good stuff. And even Barry Windsor Smith as well, like the Machine Man issue, like issue 4 of the Machine Man limited series, which Barry Windsor Smith did everything on.
Barry Windsor Smith. Yeah.
And I was just like, especially this splash page of Cityscape, and I was just like, yeah, that's what you need to do. If you want to get good comics, you need to just get in there and do everything. So that's what I did for quite a few years.
Chris is like, for somebody who didn't have any comics when he was a wee lad, and then when he picks,
he's making up for it, isn't he?
I know he's making up. He doesn't pick like a small artist to like emulate. Barry Windsor Smith, Jim Lee, Arthur Adams. Yeah, but keep on going. I know where you're going with this. So keep on going.
Yeah.
Keep on going.
So I was just like, but also because I'm just mad, is a case of like, well, they do lots of detail, but I think I can draw more. I think they leave in some stuff out. So I was just like, so I then became super, super detailed. Unfortunately, I can't find any of that stuff because I was trying to find it, because there was one particular panel that I drew that I just went bonkers on, and this was
ask your mom.
No, I don't know where it is. She might have it. Like,
in the incinerator, probably.
Yeah. But it's like where, for example, there was a character that I created, and he was like, as all superheroes, he was breaking up a drug bust on like a seedy wharf, the waterside type thing. So I had a thing of where he threw somebody into the water, and I had the panel of like from point of view as us in the water looking up at the quayside, like the wharf sort of thing.
Yes.
And with the man coming towards the water, and I'd drawn all the wood of the beams and all the slats and stuff like that. So I'd drawn all the texture on that, but I'd also worked out how the reflections of the moonlight on the water would reflect on the underside of the thing. So I was trying to work out how to make it look light and dark and stuff like that. So that's the sort of madness that I was involved in at that time. And was just being like super, super tight, super detailed. And I was just like, I'm showing these old Greek geezers how it's done properly, sort of thing. And then around about that time, I then discovered or rediscovered Mike Mignola through Gotham by Gaslight. And then not long after that, Jungle Adventure, like the Wolverine story that he did. And then I was just like, hang on a minute, there's nothing on these pages, and these are some of the best art I've ever seen. This is how you do comics. It's like, forget all that rubbishy line stuff.
He discovered less is more. He does.
And I'd already known Mignola from
look at this,
from the Rocket Raccoon limited series, which was reprinted in Transformers. That's how I read that, was through that. And then when I then got into collecting more American comics, I then saw he'd done some covers and some interior work for Alpha Flight, and again knew him from that only. So I sort of had limited Mignola knowledge, but when I saw him on Gotham by Gaslight, which a friend of mine had, I was just like, oh, I know this bloke. I'm going to read it. And so it was different to Rocket Raccoon. But I was just like, oh, he's so much better than when he was doing Rocket Raccoon. And that stuff was great. So, and then my friend was like, it's all right, because it's not Dark Knight Returns, is it? And I was just like, yeah, Dark Knight Returns is all right. And even now, I do get into arguments, because like, weird enough, Gotham by Gaslight is my favourite Batman story. And that, so it's one of those things where like,
I think people will fight you for that. It's like Gotham by Gaslight.
I've been in a few
Dark
already.
Knight Returns.
So then I sort of decided to sort of like study at the feet of Mignola for the 4 or 5 comics of his that I had. I was just like, well, this is what I need to do. And then not long after that, Iron Wolf came out, and then Fayed and the Grey Mouser, and then he did the Dracula limited series as well, like the one that was adapting Francois Coppola's thing. And it was And it was weird enough. It was seeing his Dracula was the complete turning point for me. Like in the way that before that I'd been
foreshadowing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that I'd been too timid to fully commit to the drawing nothing sort of way of life. Like hedging my bets on still drawing, detail and stuff like that if I needed to and whatever. But then there was one particular panel in that where he's drawn like Jonathan Harker or Keanu Reeves holding a candle, and it's just the outline of the candle. The way that's done, I was just like, that is perfect. That's all you need. There's hardly anything there. He's just got the shape. And then at the time, I was actually working on a Superman sample, and I'd penciled it. And then for inking it, I'd actually bought some new pens. So I thought I'd test out these pens. And just as a test, I just did an outline of a fireman pointing like up to, oh, there's Superman. And I'd already drawn in all these gear. And I actually found a really good photograph of an American firefighter. So I drawn in all the helmet and I drawn in all the stripes and stuff like that. Cause it's very different to how our firefighters look, or at least back then they did. So I drew all that in. And just to test the pen, I thought, I'm just going to draw the outline. That way I don't ruin it if it goes wrong or whatever. So I drew in the outline and I was just like, done. And then just blacked it all in. So I then completely wiped out all the detail. And I was just like, that's better. And then that was it. So that was my conversion of like, I'm just going to do that from now on.
That was your baptism of fire. You just said, you know what? I'm gonna black out the hours and hours of pencils that I put into this. Oh my gosh.
Which enough is still what I do now, really. I still draw everything. And then just either like when I do a type pencil, I then either don't bother to pencil it in, or if I still feel I need it, I will pencil it in, but then just cover it all in black. At least that way I know that it's as correct as I can make it.
I think that is such a bold story because you don't shortcut. Even though you blacked it out, you in your mind know that what's underneath that black. So that the anatomy is correct and all the details are there. But it takes some cojones. It takes some bullets, to like really just black that all out and say, what, it's there. And that's what when we're looking at, I've been previewing your art here. And you can see, even though we've kind of like jumped around in the timeline in terms of like how these influences have kind of like, these great artists, everybody from Brian Bolin and Barry Windsor Smith and Art Adams, George Perez, to Mike Mignola. You're talking about the evolution of your style, and I can see that. I even see a little bit of I don't know if do you know Chris Bachala? Do you follow him as well? Yeah, I see a little bit of influence in there too. But it really is just a treat to see the evolution of your style and just how you're able to adapt. And actually, even if you want to revisit it, I'm going to say it's like kind of like Picasso. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, Picasso, he did all those really abstract, multi. It's like if you show a picture of a woman, it would be like her profile as well as her the front of her face, as well as a 3/4 view. But people don't know that he was actually a great Renaissance style painter as well. And so I'm kind of like looking at I'm going to say that you're like a Picasso, Mr. Fantastic. You definitely have like a lot of different styles here. And you can see like as I'm looking at this stuff, it's just being able to effectively use blacks and negative space to tell your story, to actually even give a more sense of scale, to like let you know that how tiny or insignificant. We looked at some of the pages here, and there was like that scene in the ocean, and you just had these big areas of just black, deep ocean, and you have like a little tiny, boat that's in there. And seeing this stuff too, it's just great storytelling. And I have to say that as we're showing this, there's just so much art that you sent me that I can't share all of it. I'm just gonna. Don't apologize. I want people to like check out. I'm gonna look at the comments, fill out the portfolio section. You can see more of that artwork. And let me go back to because I know I'd spend like hours talking to you guys and just hearing more and more about your origin story. But I want to get to the point where you guys get assembled. And let me pull up. Let me pull up the old. Let me pull up the PDF that I had shared earlier. Hold on one second. And here we go. And I didn't mean to cut you short there, Chris, because it's such a great story. I just wanted to let people know that particular creative journey. I would love aspiring artists or and even like Chris, his journey, I see a lot of parallels there. I mean, who knows? He could have walked that line with Shane and did writing as well. And Shane, you didn't tell me that you actually drew too. You're probably being really humble. You probably have like a portfolio of fantastic artwork as well. But I wanted to like say is that, you know, here we go. We've heard the stories about how these two guys have walked these creative paths and these journeys that even though they're very different and they've all experienced they both experienced their own obstacles, you know, whether Shane's saying, hey, you should go into law enforcement or Chris with his mom, we got to love her too. You know, even though she like threw his original comics into the incinerator or the rubbish pile, you know, eventually she gifted him something that showed that, you know, that I believe in you.
And I was told I should be an accountant by those same
texts. All right.
That's
so we could have
yeah.
We could have had a law enforcement officer and an accountant. Instead, we have these two talented individuals. Yeah. And this is
we'd have had more money, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, but you would not have the love. That's what I'm going to say. The love of this, you know, of comics. So here we go. This is where I'd like to tell how you guys came together, and I'm gonna put the mic in both your hands now, and it'd be interesting to hear about your takes in terms of how you guys came together. Because Nick Fury, aka Shane, came and he's assembling his team for you know, he'd already done Dead by Dawn, a successful crowdfunded horror anthology, and you know, he's ready to like do something, you know, not too far off there. I mean, we got Dracula. I'm not gonna lie. This is everybody kind of knew that was coming. I previewed it now, but now it's a question of like who is going to be, who am I going to assemble? Who am I going to bring? What my creative team into this? And I don't know if it was he got the writer first or he got the artist first or what. But I'm gonna let Shane kind of tell that story. And when Chris, you know, when Chris comes into the picture, I'm gonna let you guys just jump, you know, like kind of tell your point of view. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to show some of that hot off the presses. Well, it's not even on the press. It's so hot. No, it's like, it's still in the very much, we have conceptual sketches and it's still in development. And we're getting a comics cast exclusive here. We're going to get to see the first 5 pages, I believe, or 5 or 6 pages. And we are going to get to see everything, like from the rough thumbnails to the tighter pencils, to the inks, to the letters, and all against. This is going to be a backdrop to hearing this creative story, this collaboration between Shane and Chris. So let me put the mic back into your hands, Shane, and let's talk about Dracula now.
Cool. So yeah, well, actually, the writers came to me. They'd seen what I'd done with. They did a story with me in Dead by Dawn, and it was a 4-page story, and we'd been chatting for a while. So I'm actually working with Dacre Stoker, who is the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker.
Oh,
yeah. So this is not just any Dracula book. It's not just any Dracula book, man. This is official Dracula material. So and I'm working with another writer called Chris McCauley, who's in Canada. He's an Irishman, but he lives in Canada. And Dacre and Chris work together. They've created this thing called the Stokerverse, which is lots and lots of Dracula-related stuff. And they're doing some really cool stuff. They're doing games. They're doing video games. They're talking to TV people. And the games that have come out are actually fantastic. There's some RPG games they've done. So I'm working with them on their comics. And we've been talking about it for a long time, doing a Dracula comic. This is the official sequel to Dracula, and it's going to be told in parts in graphic novel form. And so looking at an artist, I give it a lot of thought, actually. I've been thinking about it for probably somewhere in the region of about 6 months. We've been talking about it. Another artist was mooted, but he left the project. So I had Chris on my podcast, and with another writer, and I knew Chris anyway from it's been a while, Chris, hasn't it? We've actually sort of known each other.
Yeah. 2014 actually is when we first met.
Yeah. Was that at ICE?
No, actually it was at It was the same year as that ice, but it actually was at London Film and Comic Con.
Ah, right, yeah.
Yeah, it was the same. It was the same year that Stan Lee was there and completely dominated the convention.
Yes.
Oh, the memories are like flooding into Shane's mind here.
Yeah, my memory. I'm terrible at recollection, but yeah, Chris is right. Of course, he remembers a lot better than I do. But so I was aware of Chris's work and his style, and then when I was talking to Chris and Tony, the other guy on the podcast, we were looking at some of Chris's work. And you've actually got some bits of it in the folio there. It was the sepia type stuff. I'd say it was probably quite heavily influenced by Mignola, actually. And I love that stuff. It was just the storytelling, the style, the way that you captured, the period as well. And when I saw that, I just thought, Dracula. This is perfect for Dracula. And and hearing Chris's story now as well about his influence, it all makes sense, and it's funny as well, going back to your story, Chris, if I may. And there's a lot of parallels with me as well there. I went to see Marvel in about 1995, saw Paul Neary, and had similar experiences. Yeah, he was the guy at Marvel at the time. And
I've seen him as well, separately a different thing. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, Alpha Flight versus X-Men, Paul Neary, right? I remember that.
That little 2-issue limited series was Paul Neary involved in that?
Yeah, just a little.
Chris was just like the perfect choice, really. When I saw that art, it was a no-brainer. So I asked him. I think I asked you like at the chat at the end of the podcast, didn't I, Chris?
Yeah.
It's like, I've got this project. I think you'd be really perfect for it.
It's basically because I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. So I think that's what...
So if you would have been more tech savvy, it would never have happened.
If he was quick to click, Dracula would not have happened. This is a story you would not have known if you didn't watch comics.
That's amazing. I've only just found that out, Gerald. That's fantastic.
And I can see that because I think Chris has this perfect blend of like it has a classic style to it. I mean, there's something that's it's classic, but it's modern at the same time. Like his camera angles, like even look at this page right here, slightly turning it off to the side. That in itself is just a great compositional choice. It adds a subtle dynamic quality to it. These are things that I noticed, and I have to say, you know what, Chris, he's lying. He said he didn't know too much about you, but he has a file on you, just like Nick Fury. he has a file that says, that he's like going through. Yeah, so
I've got a file on everyone, Gerald. I've got a file on everyone.
He does. He has a file, and it's a good file. So Chris, no, it's not. It's not a bad file. It's a good file. No. But Shane. So Shane's talking about that now that he met you on a podcast, Chris, and he's basically, because you didn't click fast enough to leave the stream, he said, "Hey, I want you to work on Dracula, and let's hear your point of view. Like, what were you like? Were you like, I don't know about the Shane guy, but the eye patch totally sold you on it. You said, this is Nick Fury. I got to answer the call. Yeah. So go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. Talk about it.
That's all he was wearing, so that's worrying. No, it's one of those things. Like weirdly enough, there's certain types of characters which I really want to do, but at the same time don't want to do those characters. And one of two of the main ones being Conan and Tarzan. I don't know why they both two syllables with ends. I'm simple-minded, but it was just that I like
Draculan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's like, but I just and like with actually Dracula being another one in their little trio as well, of where I like those core concepts, those actual core ideas of those characters, and I think that. They're actually you can do quite a lot with those as well. Like I've just to go on a slight tangent, I've always said that the Fantastic Four is one of the perfect comics in terms of storytelling. Like with that comic, you can tell any type of story. It could be science fiction, it could be superhero, it could be monster, it could be a family drama, whatever you need to tell, could be done
Preach.
in Fantastic Four, and also Doctor Who, strangely enough. So it's just one of those things of where, for ages, I've been trying to figure out a way of, with those three characters, of how I can do them and rip them off without doing them and stuff like that, which also is something that I hate when people do. Like, there's a few people, especially in modern times, this is me throwing a bit of shade, but trying to keep it honest, is that a lot of people will take a team that they like or a character they like, just give him a different color cape and a different hairstyle.
I see where you're going.
Their version.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that they want to do that comic, but for some reason can't. Like, whether they just can't get work, or they're just not the right fit, or they want to see what that person looked like in real life, that they would, you know, swear and tear people apart, you know, that to push it to the extreme, as opposed to keeping it all ages and kid friendly. And part of it's just like, well, there's a reason why they work being all ages and kid friendly. You just leave them that way. Like,
it's
if you
timeless.
want to if you want to rip people's arms off or have rudeness or whatever, then do your own thing, and even go past that character. Don't just like give him a new like pair of underpants and then he's your character. So very much being aware of my own hypocrisy in that I sort of like, really, it bugs me when people do that. But at the same time, I really want to do Conan, but not Conan. How can I do that? And then like in the Tarzan and also Dracula. It's like the idea, like weirdly enough, the thing with Dracula that really sort of cemented in me a way of approaching it was the Bela Lugosi character from Edward, you know, the Tim Burton film where he did the story of Edward Jr. And I just like the way that Bela Lugosi was talking about Dracula's effect on the world, and like, because it's a cross between sort of blood and the sex, and it's that weird thing of where you hate it but you love it at the same time. And it was that sort of thing where I just thought he's actually not too far off the truth. There is that there's the pain and pleasure is sort of like right in the middle of that. And so it's just one of those things where I just thought I'd like to think about doing it, but again, couldn't really do it. Like, oh, it's a man person in a cape, but he's not Dracula. And so just put it to one side. And then weirdly enough, I've been, the past year or so, I've been really wanting to do like a Hammer horror type story, maybe with a little bit more rudeness, but essentially just do a Hammer horror style comic. And I was just like, again, it's just going to be a rip-off of Hammer horror, you know, or something like that. Like, I wanted it to be a bit like Milo Manara, a little bit Jose Gonzalez, and sort of stuff like that. So
man, listen to those names. Yeah,
I know. I'm good at dropping names. But it's just one of those things where I just thought I'd like to do it, but I don't really have a venue, and I'm not brave enough to sort of do it on my own as such. And then it was just like, it'll just happen if it happens. And then again, with Shane mentioning Dracula, I was just like, actually, that sort of, you know, even though it might not be the same aesthetic as what he would like to do, it sort of like, it in a way gets my brain working in that space, you know, without sort of having to sort of like think of it of my own, if you know what I mean, like without having to sort of write the story and stuff like that. Because that's the thing as well. So that sometimes I want to do something, but I can't actually think of the story to actually, you know, show that world. Like, I can think of a world, but I've got no story for it, you know, stuff like that. So like with the Conan thing, I've got quite an interesting world, but just no story. That doesn't involve him walking around with a big sword killing people. I'm just like, but everyone does that. You know, I know people love it. And, you know,
and I think that's
where you go.
Yeah, and I think that's where Shane came in there. He brought an interesting story to you, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And then sort of saying, hey, and that kind of alleviated any type of pressure off your shoulders, and saying like, you know what, if I'm going to do a Dracula story, then, you know, I got to think of all these little storytelling things about it. And when he got, correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, because I do recognize the name Chris McCauley. He is a talented colorist as well. I've had him.
He does do coloring.
I think I do remember him. He. But I want to.
I'm not letting him loose on this, though. I'm not letting him loose on this. Someone else is going to do the coloring.
Right. But as a writer, you know, he came to you with a story. With who was the other co-author with this?
So it's Dacre Stoker and Chris McCauley.
Who actually brings the authenticity. Because you know, this makes it. It can't get any more official than that. And I have to say, Chris, that would be a big selling point for me. It's like, hey, I'm actually going to be doing a direct sequel to you know, doing that, and to have Shane put you at the top of his list and say, you know what, I want to talk to Chris about doing it. And here, I've shown some pictures here. These are all like we got to see. I flashed through them, and we'll probably show them again later on. But I'm a big fan of pencils. That's because I have a unique phobia when it comes to inking, because I always feel like I'm going to mess it up when I go to inks. So I can respect people that can ink well, but I love your pencils here because there's so much energy and storytelling that's in here. This is what I used for your promotional banner for you guys being on here on the show, because this scene,
it's a great panel.
Very powerful.
Bit of a redraw as well behind the scenes. So.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
I forgot about that. Yeah. It was redrawn. It was originally. What was the angle? It was from the side, wasn't it?
It was more from the side, yeah. Because it was sort of following on from what was on the script. And then you gave some notes, and then so basically, given the notes of what you wanted to see, without being too dismissive, I then ignored the script and just again, not being rude to the writers. It was a case of where I'd drawn what what was in the script, and I thought it was fine, but Shane was just like, no, this could be better. So I thought the only way I can really make a difference and just make sure I don't repeat the same bad picture is I need to do something that's completely different to it, and at least that way get my brain thinking differently. So sometimes I'll do that. If a picture isn't working, I'll do totally the opposite angle or action or whatever, just to see if that works better. And then if it does work better, then do that. So I like this shot, even though in theory it doesn't show everything that was in the script, but I like the angle. So I thought I'm going to go with that because it's actually gets the point across anyway. And
I think the great thing about Chris McCauley as well is who wrote that part of the script, is that he's cool with that. Chris gets it. He gets that sometimes the artist will see things differently. They'll still tell the story, and it'll work, but they might not do it in the same way that he's written it. But Chris is very open to that. He has a lot of faith in the artists he's working with, and he lets them do their thing. So he's a good guy to work with in that respect.
And I think that's testament to Shane here, because he is Nick Fury. He's the editor in chief. He's the one who's making sure that everything gels. And when he put together this team, this is what I think when you have a writer artist team. In this case, he's also Chris is also doing inking and the lettering. Is that you want to be able to have a team that gels together, that's cohesive as a unit, that acts like the Avengers, or they can capitalize on each other's talents. And when there is it's not a strict, hey, do as I say. It's more of a creative collaboration. So I was just drawn to this panel, but now hearing the story behind it, it just makes it even more meaningful to me, because I know that's it'd be interesting if there was a director's cut where we could do the script side by side with the page. I don't know, Shane, maybe you might want to do that too.
We might do something. We might do it behind the scenes PDF.
Yeah, that would be
show
really...
the bad panel.
Panel.
But also going a bit further in terms of there's people that are really interested in the process and sort of thinking about it, is that in order to make that panel work, I then had to redraw the first panel as well, because the staging needed to be slightly different. So it's one of those things of where when you do have to make corrections or any adjustments or anything like that, you can't just focus on the thing that's wrong. You have to sort of think of the page as a holistic thing. So it's just one of those things of where sometimes something isn't working, but it actually could be in the panel before that's causing it not to work. It could be the fact how you set up the environment or things like that. So it's just one of those things of where...
I agree completely. And you know what? Hearing Chris's story, that doesn't surprise me at all, Shane. I mean, because Chris is one of those guys that, you know what? I'm going to put every brick in the wall. I'm going to draw every, and then he went from all to that to like, to like going to a more less is more approach. But he's, this is one of those little tidbits that came up in our pre-show that we did that I'm just going to share right now because it wasn't mentioned during we were showing all of Chris's earlier work. But Chris is not, we talked about how he woke up early to go to put in his 1,000 hours. The 1,000 hours, that's kind of like the rule. You got to put 1,000 hours before you can become a true, I don't know, genius or talent. I don't know if I subscribe to that completely, but it's just he's willing to put in the time. But what he did before in one of those submissions that he was sending up to Marvel is Chris has been dropping a lot of names that are just very influential creators in the comic world. But we were talking in our pre-show. He mentioned Alphonse Mucha, and I don't know. I probably mispronounced his last name too. But I'm a big fan of that too. Of him, and he's influenced countless artists not only in the fine art world but in the comic world. And I think we talked about how he influenced Adam Hughes. I'm also a big fan, just like Chris is. But he was like telling me about this epiphany he had. This is the last story that I will share before we get into like our live drawing. And he said he was getting ready to go submit his pages to Marvel, and as he had everything ready to go, he was running down the stairs. I think this is when his mom still supported him. I'm not sure, but anyway, he was about ready to go leave. Maybe not. I don't know. But he was incognito. He said, "Mom, I'm going to school," but really he was going to go submit his pages. He was running down the page, and he told me the story about how at the bottom of the stairs, it wasn't so big here. I think in America, maybe it was in England, but I would kill to have one of these. But it was one of those. You have a mirror at the base of the stairs, and it had the flourishes that were like of the Alphonse Mucha style.
Yeah, well, I had a whole actual Alphonse Mucha picture printed on it in black and white. In fact, maybe a little bit of green. It was like and it was I think they did a whole series because weirdly enough at the time, like my mum used to work at a market that was sort of like run out of Wembley Stadium, like way back when, and so I used to sometimes go and hang out there and just walk around. Just great parenting in the 70s and 80s. It's just like children are awake, just let them do whatever. Like they'll be back for dinner at some point.
It's like go mute, Chris.
So I just walk around the market for the entire day, and there would be lots of stalls where they would have these mirrors, where they would just have black and white prints of artwork just on the mirror. And so that's what it was. It was I think it was Autumn was the name of the picture of an Alphonse Mucha, like a full figure woman holding a little like basket of fruit or something like that. And so I mean, actually the artwork that you're talking about is that I've sent you is that Spider-Man sample, that first Spider-Man sample.
Right.
So if you go to that, if you find that, you can see the bad Alphonse Mucha inking.
Well, that's where I want to say this is Chris. Not he shared it to me and we actually previewed it, and I didn't get a chance to like point it out because we're going all over the place in terms of timelines here. But I just wanted to say that's where an example of Chris had already finished it, and then he goes, he had this epiphany. He goes, I'm going to put this bold Alphonse Mucha line inking outline around my characters. And so what he did, rather than going straight to Marvel, just there, he went up to his room and he did that. Now I'm not saying that was a good thing or a bad thing. Of course, Chris had a funny story. He said apparently it was a bad thing. The editor told him said, "Don't do that again." But I think that if Chris were to revisit that style, not on Dracula, maybe even something else, I think that trend actually did show up again. I think if you if anybody's a big fan of Joe Mad art, Joe Mad does a lot of that stuff where that thick bold outline. But see, this is the show like Chris figuring out like different styles for different things. And I think here he's worked with Shane. Shane approached him, and it's time to like put the Avengers together. Mr. Fantastic has joined the Avengers, and we're doing Dracula now. So I was able to show you those 5 pages. That was like a preview. No one has actually seen that, so I feel very honored that Shane and Chris were able to share that with me. And we will actually maybe talk a little bit about that toward the end of the show, but let's just jump right into our first live draw. So just like with the live draws, let's see. So Chris, if you want to go ahead and add your Cintiq to the stream, I will get that in there. And I want to give everybody a preview. So just like with all of our live drawing challenges, they're not challenges in the sense of like, who can outdo each other. It's more about just seeing the magic happen. When I have guests that come on the show, I really want to share with our audience that magic. I want to show that blank canvas, that blank screen, and give our audience an opportunity to see that happen. So our first live drawing challenge will be Dracula. So I'm going to wait for Chris to. Oh, there it is. Chris has it up there. All right. So this is what I want everybody. Before I pull the screen down, I want to show this. By the way, fantastic logo. I love that logo. Graphic designer. That's just great logo. But here we have Dracula. That was you. Well, see, you probably have this crazy portfolio you don't want to share with me, but it probably has a great art in there. But this is like, these were initial head sketches that like Chris did of Dracula. If you're going to draw along with us, do a screen capture of this right now. And let's count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Screen capture. And then we're going to go to this. Let's go to the pencils because I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say I love pencils more. But let me zoom out a little bit here. And let's go to, unless you want to do the Dracula coming out of the coffin, let me, let's go to this one. This is kind of a neat one right here. And notice that knife that's like protruding out of his lower, out of his chest. Really, really powerful.
That nearly didn't happen, that panel either. That was originally quite a different shot, wasn't it?
Oh,
Chris?
okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, I want you guys to share that. We're gonna, when we get to the drawing, I want you to talk a little bit about that. So this is a really cool composition, and you got to hear a little bit about the back and forth between editor-in-chief, writer, penciler, and how they were able to come up with these really powerful 6 pages that we're going to preview here. So here's another picture of Dracula. Do a screen capture of this. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So now that you've seen this, now I want to put out one other caveat or parameter. This is Chris's and Shane's interpretation of Dracula. I love it. But I want to leave it a little open-ended. If you want to participate in this live drawing challenge and you're in the audience, you can do your own version of Dracula. Because I want to show the Dracula love here for the horror genre. And it'd be great to like just if you want to do Chris and Shane's version, we want to get some fans. We'd like to see some fan art, based on this style, and you can show it to these creators here today. So just like with all of our live drawing challenges, let me know in the comment field if you're going to do it. And if you do that, put that into our sister page, which is the Art Show on Facebook, and I will download it and we will share it with our 2 talented creators here. We will have 15 minutes to do this, and you can, Chris is going to be doing this digitally, so who knows, he may do a colored piece by the end, and it could be a featured like stretch goal. It could be on this
15 minutes.
In 15 minutes, he could totally. He'll do a whole sequential for us. Yeah. But I'm just gonna say that it's whatever you can do. 15 minutes. We just want to show that happening. So Chris, don't feel any pressure. And then we're gonna have Shane do. Shane can, Mr. Fantastic. We'll have Shane do a little bit of voiceover narration, and he can talk a little bit about the finer details about, this particular page, if you want to talk about that, or the aesthetics or any art direction you can relay that information from the authors that would have been, given art direction to Chris. I have no idea, but I would like Shane, you just to add the narrative spice to this illustration project that we're going to be doing right now. And Chris, feel free to add in any tidbits and say, no, you're wrong. This is how it actually happened. You can definitely add whatever you want into that. But the 15 minutes will start right now. I'm going to start the timer. And Chris, sure. I'm going to let me add your camera to the thing right now. Oops. Let's get that up here. Okay, you're going to be your cam will be on all the time, and of course we're all here right now, and so that we can actually see all that magic happening. So the clock will start now. We are doing Dracula, your own interpretation, or if you'd like to do
any direction from Shane as to
all right. Shane, you want to tell us what you want? You want to do a headshot or an action shot or a decapitation?
Let's do
shot?
Dracula coming out of a coffin. From a
okay, we'll see. Yeah. So you're adding a prop. Okay, I was like gonna like cop out and just do a face, but now you've added more pressure to me. But let's
give you something to work with.
Okay, all right. So the mic is in your hands, and the clock is now ticking, and 15 minutes is going on right now. All right, so Shane, go have it. Let's talk about Dracula and your version of Dracula.
So the version that we're doing is the original Dracula from the novel. So it was really important to Dacre that this sequel was faithful to the book. So the version that we've got, as you've probably seen from the pages, is, he's grey-haired, he's got the beard, he's got hairy hands. He's not the Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee Dracula from Hollywood. He is the Dracula from the book, or as our interpretation of Dracula from the book. And I always feel that, an artist needs to be able to put their stamp on anything, even though we want to be faithful. It's really important that an artist can have a little bit of freedom But we did work for a while, didn't we, Chris, on Dracula and on the model and how he'd look, and
that
we
was
went backwards and forwards.
Was the one that had the hardest work, actually. Like the other characters seemed to come quite easily, even though I refined them. They seemed to be the same between sketches, but whereas
I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because he's like such an important character in it. You want to nail him, don't you? And
Well,
but you got there, mate. You got there. It was great. And
I mean,
I really loved.
Again, that sort of came again from direction of the from Dacre and from Chris, because I think it was more based on the previous version more than like something that I come from scratch as such. Like, no pun intended.
Those are choice words. I love
that pun happens all the time, don't you worry. I mean, Dacre was great. He gave us a passage from the book, didn't he, where they describe how Dracula looks, and it was fantastic. You know, because Bram Stoker's writing style was very visual. Something he's got in common actually with Chris McCauley, the writer, is very visual style, which is great for comics. You know, I mean, I think if Bram Stoker was alive today, I think he would have dabbled in comics, definitely, because he had such a visual writing style. You could tell he had a really clear mind's eye. You know, the way he described things, it's very evocative. So our Dracula is our Dracula, but it's really Bram Stoker's Dracula more than anything else. But we've had a little bit of license with the artistic license with some of the other characters, and there's some new characters going to be appearing in this book as well that are going to be introduced, that Chris has pretty much designed himself, and I love what you've done with them. They're exactly how I envisioned them in my head, to be honest. And I love Mina Harker's in there, obviously. There were some sketches earlier, some head sketches, and that I think pretty much straight away you pretty much nailed that one, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, I think my default sketching of anyone seemed to be Victorian lady. I don't know where that comes from. It could be from Dropping by Gaslight.
Yeah.
But it's so if I tend to sketch somebody, it is somebody of that era. So I'm compelled to draw Victorian women. So there you go.
Perfect. Well,
maybe you're a fan of was it Eva Green? I don't know if you guys watched what was that?
Yeah, Penny Dreadful.
Penny Dreadful. Awesome.
Yeah,
that was show ended way too soon, and it was just a hodgepodge at the end. It's like I wish that they actually had a couple extra seasons. That last season. I actually might give a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. I almost drew Penny Dreadful as well. What?
Or at least told I was going to draw Penny Dreadful, and then it got cancelled. So there you go.
Oh man!
I think it was just to stop me from drawing it. I think that's why they cancelled the comic. It was just to
that's
make
terrible.
sure I didn't get my brother's little hands on it.
I would have loved to see that.
Oh man, that's cool.
My sample pages for that are actually on my website, actually, on my portfolio site.
We're gonna have to go back and so definitely revisit that.
Check those out, folks. Definitely, yeah.
All right, so I forgot where were you at when you were talking? I sort of lost track. You were talking about.
Well, I'd sort of finished, I think, but no, I was just going to go on to the page that you were talking about there, the rework. You know, it's quite funny because originally it was quite an for Chris, his style. It was quite intricate, wasn't it? The building, the castle, the Dracula castle.
Yeah, I mean, I did sort of base it on the real castle, castle. And sort of drew it all in, but then realized it would either have sun or moon behind it, and so it ended up being more of a silhouette anyway. But I still drew as much as I could in. But yeah, there was more detail I think in the first version.
Yeah, definitely.
Could see. Yeah.
And I think my comment, it probably wasn't the most helpful comment. I think my comment was something like, I think the angle needs to be a bit more extreme, because you draw the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you're probably cursing me at that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sort of wasn't, but it's one of those things where, as you bring it up, I think it should be noted that if any people are out there listening that are in a position of, doing art or giving artwork, direction and stuff like that, that you can't just press a button that says draw castle here now.
Yeah.
That there is that thing of where I mean, like for the comments you gave, they were fine, but I've dealt with people that have been definitely more changing of stuff and expecting it to happen instantaneously. And even if you work digitally, it can't be done instantaneously.
No.
There is that perception that people have. If it's all done on computer, then you just talk to the computer and just say, computer, do this. And it doesn't work that way. Like whatever you do, it still needs to be drawn.
Yeah.
So there's that thing of where it's like I say, the comments that you gave weren't bad at all. They were in a way vague enough that were open to interpretation. There's sometimes I've been given direction which is vague but also precise and pointless, and it's just like I don't know what you're talking
without a purpose. Yeah.
And sometimes I've just ignored them, and the person's gone, "Oh yeah, great, you've made the change." And I'm like, I didn't.
You're giving away all your secrets, because now Shane's gonna look back and go, "Is he just pulling my chain, or is?"
I'll be watching out for that.
He's got both versions to compare to, so he'd be fine.
Right.
But yeah, but it's just one of those things where, like I say, there were changes that needed to be done, but again, they weren't that extreme and they weren't unwarranted. Like some people just give notes just to make a change because they have the power to. Because they think it's a job of an editor is to just get in there and this is mine, this is how I do it, whatever. Whereas like Shane was just like please make it better, basically. So it was just like, and I was like, fine, that's what needs to be done. Like sometimes, as much as I sort of want to think I'm doing the best in the world and all that sort of stuff, sometimes things do slip or my brain's not working properly, and just you need somebody else to point out that sort of stuff.
It's good to have another pair of eyes, isn't it? Sometimes when you're working on and storytelling as well, it's because it's a very instinctual thing. And so I don't know about you, Chris, but if I'm doing strips, I'm drawing strips, I don't think too much about the storytelling. It's very instinctual, and if I do make an error, only someone else is going to spot it. I'm not going to spot it because I'm so into it, And it is handy sometimes to just have that other pair of eyes. Or what? Because there's another one, we can't show it here because it's later on. Because there was another. I wanted to ask you about it. There was a panel where I asked you to swap the panels round so that it was going into the scene. Did that make sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, in the script, it was actually the way that I'd drawn it. But again, I was, and weirdly enough, it's one of those things of where how the scene was described in the script, this description warranted the way that it is now. But because he decided, the Chris had described the scene, but then was very specific in a close up for that thing. So in a way, you can't see all that he's described. So I sort of ignored that part and just drew the action, and then put the scene in the second panel. So which is how it was done. But then with swapping them around, you then get a bit more establishing of the geography before, which is a more traditional way of telling the story. And again, sometimes you can get away with being quite obscure with how you deliver a scene to somebody, or sometimes you just need to be on Front Street sort of straight away. Again, depends on the mood you want to do, the clarity of the situation, stuff like that. So yeah, it's I think both ways work, but sometimes doing it the traditional way, which is what it is now, is actually the better way to do it. If you're doing something that's non-traditional.
And that's the other thing, isn't it? I mean, there is a certain level of subjectivity as well, isn't there? And your how you tell a story can be different from one person to another, but there are certain rules, I think, that you need to follow, and you can break them when you know them really, really well. I mean, you see people do it, don't you?
Right.
I mean, Toth was a master at that. He was always breaking the rules, but he was, he could do that.
I basically disregarded Mignola, and like Toth is now my sort of my spirit guide as such.
Right. Mignola's gone to the side.
I'm sure Mike is turning over and he's like, man, I had Chris, but now he's gone on to greener pastures. So
Well, it's Toth, so that's cool.
But again, but it's one of those things where I discovered him sort of, I'd say not fairly late in my artistic process, but sort of a bit later than you would for having a bigger of a strong influence. And then, but also the problem with liking somebody like him, especially 20 odd years ago when I first discovered him, is that there's hardly anything of his work around. Like, he didn't do that much comic work anyway compared to most people. So it is a case of where you are limited to how much impact that person can have and how much you can learn from a very limited, amount of information. So some of it is sort of like almost guesswork and things like that. And I do think one thing I've discovered when I've seen more of his work in the last few years is that he really loves pushing the elements into the negative space. Like, I'm a believer in the rule of thirds and stuff like that, but using the smallest part of the third is where all the information goes. If I can make it that way, then I shove everything in that in one corner, and then the rest of the space is practically empty, or you leave that for word balloons. And I realised that he does that a lot as well. So I've sort of leaned into that even more. Again, it's like I see what somebody that I like, what they do, and I just try and do it to where I break it. So it's. But again, whether it works or not, sometimes you don't know. Or sometimes I think this is the best panel in the world ever, and then someone else will look at it and go, "What's going on? I don't understand." And you're like, "You're an idiot. Give it back. You can't look at my."
That's where Shane comes in. He's like, "I'm the editor in chief.
Yeah.
This is total rubbish. Got to start from the drawing board."
I'd never say that. I would never say those words. That's just that's not cricket.
That's not it. That's where I think good editor in chiefs are. It's like they gotta, just like with because I've heard some brutal stories, about editors in chiefs where they say, "No, you got to go back to the drawing board." But it's more about, I think that what's the thing is, like, it's like kill them with kindness. You kind of like, even if it's like gone astray, it's like find the positive in it and build.
Yeah, I mean it's very rare. I mean, for a start, when you work with an artist, you've seen their work, you've seen their portfolio, so you're at a certain level already. So you've got a lot of trust in them. You're never going to go, "Oh, that page is just rubbish," because they're not going to be rubbish because you've chosen them. You've looked at their work. That always confuses me when I see people hire artists and then slate them or whatever, or throw shade at them. And I think, well, you looked at their portfolio, haven't you? You knew what they were going to do. You knew the way they were going to interpret that work. And but I think sometimes that they don't appreciate what that artist does, and so they don't give them the leeway that they should. And they don't have the faith or the trust in them. And I think you've got to have a lot of trust in your artist. And the only time I would ever ask for a change if it was something really crucial to the storytelling. If it's something subjective, if it's a matter of taste, I will let it roll. Because I'll have faith that they're doing what they do and they're doing their thing. If it's something I personally feel, I don't really like that, the way that's drawn, I wouldn't comment, to be honest. I wouldn't pull anyone on that, because that's what they've been hired for the way they draw and how they do it. And I think, as you said before, Gerald, some editors might, do it differently. They might be hard. I have heard stories as well of real hard-ass editors, really putting the pressure on people, tearing pages up, leaning over their shoulders while they're working,
micromanaging. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it gets results with some artists. That's the other thing as well, is that every artist's different. You've got to treat people as individuals. I don't think you can say, this is how I treat artists, because every artist will respond differently to how you treat them. Some artists might need that hard approach. They might want that. They might desire it. It might be that's how you get the best out of them. Some guys, they'll go to pieces,
Right. I think that's what I think. I think it's a level of professionalism that you kind of seek, and I think you find that with Chris, is that you are able to take constructive criticism and for the sake of a better product and better project, a better outcome, and then for you to look at it, you look at it as like, hey, I'm not going in this completely blind. I know why I picked this particular artist or this writer to be on my team. So let's, and you're able to put your ego, I guess when you can put egos leave them at the door and then sort of
Yeah,
say, hey,
got it.
we're all on the same team, and we want to make that
Mm.
best product that shows the that level of professionalism and good storytelling. That if it's done
Yeah.
in that sake, and like I like what you said too. It's like it's like the subjective versus the objective. You're not letting a personal opinion or a personal bias on like a look or style that you may not like, but if you realize it works for this particular piece, let it go, let it flow, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
You got to do that. Sorry.
And I was going to say is that we actually are past our 15-minute time
really?
limit, and
talking too much.
but no, it's good. It's awesome. The only, like I said, I mentioned before, is the only way we can add a little bit more time. We can add about 5 more minutes to it. Is if Chris would like to do 5 more minutes. Chris, do you want to do more 5, or do you want to just go ahead and share? I'm kind of like looking at just your picture because I don't want to see what you've done, because I'll be like put into a Dracula trance and I'll just want to watch you draw. So do you want to do like an extra 5 more minutes on this particular?
Yeah, that should 5 more minutes should cover it.
Okay,
really, yeah.
all right. So I'm gonna add another 5 minutes to this, and then allow me a chance to do my Alphonse Mucha like outline that I'm gonna do on my drawing, just to make it a little bit more visually seen. But I don't know if let's I guess Shane, I don't know if you want to talk. Let's talk about the aesthetics. Of this particular Dracula. You did mention he's older, and the Victorian age, of course. Was there any other additional art direction that you gave to him or gave to Chris, or do you let Chris to say?
Not really. No, that was the main direction. Really, obviously, it's a period piece. We want Dracula to look like the original Dracula, but really, it was very much free reign to do his own thing. Within the confines of the script. And as I said before, Chris Macaulay and Dacre Stoker are very open to the artist's interpretation, as long as the model on Dracula is important. But there's lots of other stuff that we can be more sort of flexible with. So I didn't give that much more direction, really. But it's good to see an artist do their own thing. I was really surprised by some of the stuff that Chris did, and it's a pleasure to see an artist excel. It really is, and I think if you confine them too much, they're not going to excel. We've got I should reveal, actually, this is a bit of a reveal. We've got Matthew Soph doing the colouring, who is an exceptional colourist. I haven't got any of his work to show you, but he really is a top colorist, and he's going to be coming on and doing the coloring over Chris's work, and I think it's going to be such a good fit. I really do. I think it's going to, because Chris's inks are beautiful, as you can see here, even on this sketch. Like his eye for a line is lovely, but adding what Matt's going to do with this, it's going to add a whole different dimension to the pages, and I'm really excited to see to see the color. That's going to be really interesting.
I am as well, actually. Yeah.
Is the did that particular colorist, did he work on anything for Dead by Dawn, or is he like
No, I've not worked with him before, actually, but he has worked with. He's worked it for. I think he's done stuff for Dark Horse. He's done stuff for 2000 AD. And lots of indie stuff. He's very much an indie guy. He's a Brit, but he's living over in the States.
So we got him now here in the States. So.
Yeah. And he's a great colorist, and he's a great artist as well. Matt is also a really good artist in his own right. He's not just a color artist. He does some beautiful stuff. Check out his page. Matt Soph. It's just absolutely beautiful stuff that he does. I'll probably get him to do a cover at some point as well for something, because I really, really like his work. And I'm glad that you're in agreement, Chris, on the choice for him as well.
Yeah. Cool. It's like I said, looking forward to seeing what he does, actually.
Good.
Well, yeah. So I'm. Yeah, I'll be interested to see about that too, because I have to say that I think that letterers and colorists, they're like the unsung heroes for a lot of. A lot of attention goes toward the writer and the penciler and even the inker to a certain extent. But colors and letters, they set the mood for coloring, like being able to set like I don't know if I'm sure that you've watched any Pixar movie. So for like, Pixar are master manipulators of your emotion, because they have, I think they have a whole book on it, which is like Pixar color theory. And I think that applies. It's like, I've actually gotten to the point where I will pick up books based on a colorist. Sometimes the colorist will bring out, they'll take an art, a penciler and inker's art to that next level.
And then definitely.
And letterers the same way. If a letter, if it's not done right lettering, then you find yourself kind of like wandering around the page, like who knows?
Oh, bad lettering will destroy a comic. I mean, to be honest, it'll destroy a comic more than anything else. If you've got poor art but the storytelling's good, that's okay. If the coloring isn't great, you can get away with it. Bad lettering, poof. You've lost the comic. It's gone.
Yeah, full confession, that's the first thing I look at, actually, is lettering.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh,
and if I don't like the lettering, I might not even read it. So I know that's just me, but not saying that I'm the best letterer in the world, but it's one of those weird things. In my head, I have these weird internal rules when it comes to lettering. And if somebody's, without them knowing it, broken that rule, then I'm just like, ooh, don't like this. I just know I'll just be commenting. I'll just be re-editing it in my head as I go along.
It's frustrating, isn't it? It's really, and you see it a lot with some indie comics. The guys who've they spend money on a great artist and great color artist, and they're beautiful art, with beautiful storytelling, and then lettered in Comic Sans. It's just.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and and it doesn't flow. Sorry, Chris.
No.
So that's why they invented punching.
Yeah. So, comics, people who use Comic Sans.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sad to say that we've already added that extra 5 minutes and it's expired.
Yeah.
So first of all, I enjoy this conversation. I loved hearing the behind the scenes stories and just like even your own personal preferences on certain things and how you're able to come up with these great expressions when it comes to panels, like being able to respect each other as bringing your talents, whether it's being an editor or writers and pencilers, bringing those individual talents to the page to make it much stronger. And I feel like I got to be the fly on the wall, listening to the creative process with some of those pages that we saw. So that being said, Chris, I'm going to solo your screen out right here and we're going to let you zoom in a little bit. So let me put that out there and make this really big. Oops. There we go. Wrong screen.
Wrong
screen. Here we go. This is the one that we want to maximize. Can you zoom in a little bit? I want to see that face. And this is amazing. This is what Chris did in 20 minutes. Ouch.
That's awesome.
I don't even want to show you mine. But I'm just looking at this. This looks crazy good. There's all sorts of real. I mean, that's another thing about doing art is that you can draw something and it could be a pinup. It could look visually executed well, but is there a story behind it? And that's the thing that, when you're doing comic art, it's and sequential comic art is you have to be able to put a narration. There has to be a story behind it because it can't just be a pretty picture, or in this case, a horrifyingly good picture. How about that? We got Dracula. He's coming for you. But
that's it. The storytelling in a single image. That's what I love there. It's even though it's a single image and it's not sequential, there's still a story behind it. That's great.
Yeah, and literally behind it. I mean, he's put in some Gothic arches there in the background, so you get the sense that this is in a catacomb. I am really not wanting to show my artwork. I don't really think I think I did everything cliche. I did everything really cliche, and everything that you did is just really cool. And I just wanted to let's share some. We got a comment in here. Arelis, who's always been on our show, commenting on stuff, just said, "Wow, yes, I agree." You don't even have to add any extra words on it. Wow is what I'm saying to you. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's check out because you did a. And this is what I'm amazed at. I'm always amazed at in the time period that we have, what our guests can do. And, it's an establishing shot. You get a little bit of the background. You see that. And then you also get a sense of, there's this creepiness. And there's physics. This looks like a really heavy crypt. And you see that he's not really struggling with it, but you could kind of tell he's been kind of there for a while. And then he's pushing it out. He's just ready to get his next victim so he can get up to like full like strength here. But yeah, just incredible stuff. Let me see if anybody, no one in the comment field looks like were they able to draw along with us. Let me check our sister group on the art show and see if anybody maybe drew and just didn't let me know. Hold on one second.
While you're doing that, Gerald, I'll show you a little drawing that I did. Not just now, I hasten to add.
Okay, I'm gonna let me maximize it. Yep. It
was a little Dracula sort of thing that I did. Yeah, I don't know if you could see that.
Ooh. What? Oh my God! I knew it. I knew you were lying. I knew you said you didn't. And did you just do that like 15 minutes ago?
No, not just that. I did it the other day.
Oh,
it's bringing prepared stuff. That's not fair.
Yeah, I know. It's like, here's one I did earlier. It's a bit Blue Peter, isn't it? But,
that is incredible. In fact, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to say that Shane, when we have you on the show again, you're not ready for it now, but we're gonna have you on the show again a little later on. Maybe when this Dracula comic is fully done, and you're gonna draw along. No excuses. So let me share my screen. No one actually was able to draw along with us. I guess everybody's celebrating their mothers. Yeah. So I will show my cliche one, which perspective is all out of whack. But I just really want to show our guests more than anything. So let me share this real quick, and here we go. So it looks like he's coming out of a tub instead. Maybe like he's in a
That's
cauldron.
Cool, man. I love the hair.
I don't know. I feel like I should put it in the rubbish bin and be having sent to the incinerator. But it's fun. It was a fun thing. I've never drawn Dracula, and I think I'm gonna have to now. Because now you guys have inspired me to do so. But yeah, this is really cool. I'm so excited to see where this is gonna go. Let me take this off the screen real quick because it doesn't need to be seen. I want to show this one more time. Fantastic artwork, Chris. It's amazing what you could do in 20 minutes, and who knows, maybe this could be like a add-on tier pinup that could be added to when Dracula launches. Who knows? It could be that rough thumbnail to a greater picture. So I love how you were able to give us a little bit of art direction on that particular piece. And now, as we go into our second live drawing, this is where you actually get to give us art direction again. Our drawing challenge number 2 is usually reserved for the co-host, but if you haven't noticed, I'm going solo. So you lying to me and telling me you have no artistic talent, Shane, I'm just completely beside myself that you lied to me there. But I would like for you to do this. It'll be my guest challenge because you said you were the non-drawing part of this team, but obviously that's not true. But
I like to let other artists shine. That's
okay. That's right. So I'm already blinded by what Chris does. So Chris, because your artwork is so brilliant, we're gonna get to see another crack at you doing some more artwork. So Shane, I kind of let you know that you would help us pick what that live drawing challenge number 2 is. So I'm going to set the clock back up to 15 minutes, and you let Chris and I know, as well as our audience, if they want to draw along with us, what that will be. So let us know. Drop it on us.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about Doctor Strange, but I wanted to have more of a horror element. So I would love to see a zombie Doctor Strange.
Zombie Doctor Strange. I have not seen the movie yet, but I have trying to avoid spoilers. But I know there was in the trailer, there looked like there might be a zombie Strange in there, and I am like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with that? And man, Shane, pushing us to the limit here. All right. So that being said, if you want to draw up. Chris is already jumping right in. I'm setting the clock. I'm setting it right now. Yeah, go for it. I'm starting the clock right now. And if you're in the audience, if you want to draw along with us, we are doing a zombie Doctor Strange. So here we go. I just want to pop up before I draw. I'm going to pop up a few other comments here. Arelis mentioned, and this is regarding the last Dracula artwork. This is to you, Chris. The darkness in the back really makes it stand out. She says also, I love that. And she also says lots of comments. I think that was
yours, Gerald.
Oh, no, not me. Definitely not me. She says that's creepy and very cool. and she also says this is the favorite part of the show. Or else, thank you for commenting. She's rescuing me here in terms of like comments here.
Number one.
And she says woohoo right here. So that's woohoo and wow. That's you guys. That's how I'm going to describe you guys. All right, so we are doing Zombie Doctor Strange. And while we're doing this, I'm going to just throw out a topic here. Aside from like you, Shane, being a fan of the horror genre, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, it came out this weekend. And I think it was directed by Sam Raimi, who's he's pioneered that whole put a camera on a rope and swing it to make it look like a banshee's coming at you or some crazy horror. It was at that time, with Evil Dead.
Oh, the Evil Dead. Yeah.
And Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Yeah. What did he say? It's like give me some sugar, baby. I don't remember. There was like all sorts of classic lines that and some that I will not mention that were really funny. But I'm going to say that I'm a big fan of that movie. What I guess you haven't seen the movie yet, have you? Have you watched it?
Doctor Strange? No, not yet. No.
So both of you haven't seen it?
No, going tomorrow.
Oh,
you
okay.
Have. All right.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so Chris, no spoilers.
No spoilers.
I have not seen it. Maybe I might watch it after my show with you guys, or I might just go back and cry because I'm going to say, well, I can't draw or write like the two of you guys. But anyway, I have to go watch the movie. But I'm just going to put this question out to both of you. Were you fans of Doctor Strange before the MCU? Did you read the Steve Ditko like classic? The Kirby.
I love the Ditko stuff.
Yeah.
I remember again. It was reprints. It was reprints because in UK, so it's black and white. Ditko in black and white. Doctor Strange is a thing of beauty. It really is. It's fantastic. I love those black and white reprints. I think it's why I still love black and white art now. Like a lot of my favorite artists, the strongest work is black and white. And I think it's because I was brought up on black and white reprints. But it was great to see people like Ditko, Kirby, Buscema, Gil Kane, people like that in black and white. It's closer to the original art than it would be in a comic, and it was bigger because it was British. So it was a real joy to be introduced to those things. And Doctor Strange as a character, I've always enjoyed a lot of his stuff actually, because obviously I never really followed characters. I've always more followed artists and writers. But a lot of good Doctor Strange has come out,
Yeah, I know.
Like Marshall Rogers, the Kevin Nolan, beautiful stuff. Yeah.
I have to say that I've heard more like nostalgia artist name dropping here that I have heard in any show. You guys, I think we could have a show where we just talk about our favorite artists, because I've heard so many great just artists that
we're of a certain age, Gerald. That's what it is.
We have it's opened the floodgates of memories, in terms of just and then I'm seeing all these pictures in my head. But Chris, were you a big fan of that too? I'm gonna have to say that I love the black and white, but I like the color too because it had that whole psychedelic feel. And I'm not a. I'll have to say that I don't partake in any recreational drugs, but I would imagine that if there was a psychedelic universe, that would be the one that Steve Ditko and Kirby and all of them, put together. Just crazy. I mean, I have never seen anything like that. So Chris, I mean, were you a big fan of that whole look? To me, it defined what Doctor Strange's universe.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't read a lot of stuff with Strange purely out of sort of lack of access or budget and things like that.
Yes, that's right.
But as a character, I liked when he sort of turned up in various things. I'm trying to think the first thing I saw him in. It could have been a John Byrne Fantastic Four. That's the first one that pops to memory, but I don't think it was really the first one. But yeah, it's just the problem is with sort of the Marvel universe as a whole, with being a Brit, is that they would just reprint stuff almost randomly. So when I was reading Spider-Man and Zoids, and my friends were reading Secret Wars, that they were reprinting Secret Wars, but also reprinting the tie-ins, because it was a big crossover event. But to me, they were just all the same story. I didn't realise they actually were there were separate X-Men and Fantastic Four stories, like comics. I just thought it was just Marvel comics. Like that's sort of my only knowledge was at the time. And they just had all these characters, and it wasn't until I sort of found out there's this magical place called a comic shop that you could go and buy comics, like, and that had whole stories in that had all this stuff, and that's where I first sort of saw my first Avengers, which was drawn by John Buscema because he was drawing it at the time. And the only reason I recognised his artwork was because of the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book. Is I recognised his style on this cover of Avengers, and I was like, I'm pretty certain that's the same bloke that drew that book I like. So then I sort of looked at it and recognised the name. So I then was like, I need to read this now. And a friend of mine said, I've got that at home. And I was like, why are we standing here talking? Like, to go to your house. So sort of like went to his house, I read it, and then went back and then bought the issue. And that's when I actually started collecting Avengers.
Wow.
And then, so it's just like, so it's difficult to actually sometimes come up, unless there's a specific memory like that. There's sometimes I could see characters just wandering, you know, like the one of my favorite Doctor Strange memories is a Fantastic Four one, is when it's like everyone, like Fantastic Four and everyone versus Galactus, you know, and he sort of like causes Galactus to scream and all that sort of stuff. So it's and sometimes it's difficult to know when you first see things, you know, because my first experience of Superman was a hairbrush, you know, which I had. It's a big chunky hairbrush that was in the shape of Superman.
That's brilliant.
My first Batman experience was a T-shirt, which I think was a Dick Ayers type. Not Dick Ayers. Was it him? It was. I can't remember now who was sort of the main classic. No, Dick Sprang. That was it. Yeah. So it was a Dick Sprang era Batman cover that was on a T-shirt, and I was like, when I was 4 years old, and I was just like, this is the best bit of clothing I've ever worn. So,
well, I think your story is much better than mine, because I would have to say, I think I was like at 4 years old, I had Spider-Man underoos, and that picture does not exist. It's been shredded, no longer in existence. But I like your story much better. So.
A lot of us came into these characters through merchandise, though, didn't we? You know,
they did. They knew how to totally manipulate us into buying stuff. You know.
Totally,
I knew Spider-Man from the TV show more than more than
the old '60s TV show.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it was the live action or Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. So I can't remember which was which. But
I do remember that.
The live action.
I know my first experience with X-Men and stuff was from the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's where I first heard of X-Men.
I know that episode. I love that episode, but it's so funny because Wolverine has got like not a Canadian accent, an Australian accent.
Yeah.
First time I ever saw Wolverine, he sounded Australian and said, "Do you want a piece of fruit?" You know, that's not Wolverine. It's just
at that point, was it millions of Canadian Wolverine fans were crying out loud, like, what a travesty! You know, he's not Australian.
Canadian. He's not Australian. They always showed him as Australian in all the old cartoons. I remember when they did the Pride of the X-Men, when they did that pilot. There was that. He had a really weird Australian stroke Cockney accent in that. I don't know what was going on. But in the he was in the X-Men. It was the Juggernaut, wasn't it? It was the Juggernaut was the villain in that episode. It's great. It's great. It's so bad it's good.
That's exactly right. I know that when we grew up with it, it's like, we just accepted it, of course, even though it was kind of weird. But now it's like we can kind of. I like what you said. It's so bad that it's good, because it's been ingrained in our brains. That, and it's sort of like Hugh Jackman, when they cast Hugh Jackman, who's also Australian. It's like everybody thinks that he is the definitive Wolverine, and he has owned that role. So now it's going to be very hard. It's like, I remember when he was cast, I was like, he's way too tall. It's like Wolverine's supposed to be a scrapper and kind of like but now it's like we look at it and we're like going, well, who's going to do Wolverine now?
I mean, I've heard rumors of who it's going to be, so it'll be interesting to see.
Some interesting rumors, but I think Jackman just proved that a good actor can do it. If you're a good actor, you can make it work, even though you're not physically like the role. You know, I always thought it's not the greatest movie in the world, but I don't know. You did Predators with Adrian Brody. I always think of that movie.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
He pulls off being a tough guy, and this is like a really slight, gentle chap, you know, in real life, but he pulls it off, you know. And I remember watching that and thinking, that's what happens when you get a good actor, you know, in a role like that. He just made it work, you know. He's not the greatest movie in the world, but I really like his performance in that movie.
You're so right. I mean, because that movie, and you have to say that it was much better than the other, the Alien versus Predator movies that were just total travesties. But I have to say that you're so right. Is that it's like all those movies have all these potentials, and maybe it's, as fans we are too demanding. I have no idea if that's the ultimate case.
We probably are, yeah.
But when I look at it, you're right, because at least from a cinematic point of view, I thought it was shot really well, and you know they did have some cool. They had Danny Trejo. He was in that movie. We had a stellar cast that was put together, but it just didn't fit. Some parts of it didn't fit right. But Lawrence Fishburne, I thought, as a crazy guy, I thought that he played that role really well. But it's so cool.
It was a fun movie. I thought. I think there was just, like you say, we have high expectations. It's Predator, and how do you follow the original Predator? Really, I mean, it's one of the greatest action movies of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know, I have to say that part 2 was actually okay.
Danny great. I loved it.
It was kind of campy, but I have to say that last scene at the end with the Predator ship, and they had all the Predators come out. It's still in my mind, that would probably be the only scene that definitely outdid the first Predator. In terms of just.
I remember watching that in the cinema. I was really young when quite young. I was probably late teens, early 20s when that came out, and I remember watching that in the cinema and just having a shiver when those Predators appeared at the end.
Yes.
You know, it's like, whoa, you know.
And it's kind of funny because I heard that the next Predator movie might actually be capitalizing on that moment, because I think it might be a period piece where it goes back into the past, a prequel, and they might show where they might have, because they had that scene where the Predator who throws, like, as a sign of respect to Danny Glover's character, a musket, and I got this vibe. It's like, oh man, it's like going to be Assassin's Creed style Predator where you go back into the past. I think that would be so cool to see that. But yeah, Chris, were you a big fan of the Predator movies too, or was
I've weirdly enough, I've never seen number 2. It's just I would think I was just a smidge too young to be savvy enough to sneak into the cinema, and just sort of missed it on video. But I like the first one. The first one I loved quite a lot.
Great.
Especially like the bit where you sort of still see Apollo Creed's arm.
And it's still shooting.
But no, it's just, I don't know, quite like, again, I'd like to sort of do something like that. I mean, in a way, I think Kyle Sparks with his Sex Castle comic has sort of trumped everyone. And if you know that comic or not. That's amazing.
I'll have to look that up.
It's like it's a comics love letter to sort of Chuck Norris and all that sort of stuff. And it's one of the best things I've read in years, actually. So,
I'll check that out.
Yeah, a very dubious title comic, so you have to be careful who you ask to buy it. So it's sort of like, but you get a bit of weird look at people when you sort of like say, like, if you read Sex Castle, they're like, no, I have not.
You don't want to put it in Google. It's something you might get unexpected results in Google.
You beat me to it, Shane. I was going to say the exact same thing. It was like, you might have to like.
It's definitely worth a read.
How are we doing for time, Joe?
We got about 3 more minutes.
Wow.
So, and we went from talking Doctor Strange to the Predator. Only on Comics Cast would you get that.
It is just like going down the pub and having a chat with your mates. This show, I have to say, is like, because the subject of Predator comes up too many times.
I think all roads lead back to Predator. You can talk about anything, and then you're gonna talk about the Predator and stuff like that. But let's I don't know. what else can we talk? We talked about the Predator. We talked to, and Doctor Strange. I guess you guys are in the UK. I guess MCU is just as big as here in the
massive.
States. I take it.
It's omnipresent. Yeah. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, is there a lot? The Doctor Strange, was it well received? Like with Benedict Cumberbatch as Strange, did everybody like were they thrilled with the casting? Did they think that was really good? I mean, do you guys liked him as Strange?
I don't think you could get a better casting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he's
perfect. I think they're pretty much overall they're very good at actually doing their casting. I don't think there's really been any bad casting for the main characters. If you look at the first Avengers film, both Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans look like they've been drawn. There's a few things where you're thinking, I'm sure actually someone's gone in and actually drawn Chris Evans' body. Because it just looks to how the comics are done.
Right. I'll agree with you.
And I mean, weirdly enough, I do like how they've done Tony Stark, but to me, he's very different to how I read Tony Stark in my head. I was actually, Iron Man was sort of one of the first comics that I used to collect. It was back when it was sort of Mark Bright was doing the pencils.
Oh,
that sort of era.
Another great name. The Ironmonger. I remember that. That was out. That was after.
And again, being the contrary sort of fan that I am, it was the silver and red armor that I really liked.
Yeah, that was cool.
The Silver Centurion. Yeah. Man, I'm having so much memories. That's just so good.
It was a great period. That I loved that period of Iron Man. I call it the Bob Layton period because it was predominantly written by and a lot drawn by him as well. That's Iron Man. That is Iron Man. Yeah, I love it.
But just like Hugh Jackman did with Wolverine, I think Robert Downey Jr. did the same thing with Iron Man, because now it's like, how can you replace him? He totally owned it. He's definitely more he brought a lot more humor to the role than because I always thought of Tony Stark was kind of like more like Elon Musk. He had like this he had a dry humor, and of course if you read Demon in the Bottle, you saw about his alcoholism problem that he had to deal with. There was a lot more seriousness to it. But then I liked how Robert Downey Jr. could add that gravitas to the role, as well as have those lighthearted comic moments as well. So,
he put himself into the role a lot, didn't he? And he made it work, because Iron Man in the comics, he is quite dry, isn't he? He's quite serious. He's the guy that does all his homework.
The time I read it, he had a very bad perm as well.
Didn't he? What was with that perm?
He had the mullet. He made mullets like
curly mullet.
The rich even had mullets. Even multi-billionaire playboys, could have make mullets work. I think that was
how did he get that mullet in the helmet? That's what I want to know.
That's nanotechnology hair gel. That's what it was. So. All right, so we've exhausted our time, and I got so into listening to you guys. I didn't draw that much, but anyway, let me look at this. Oh, look at this! Chris actually added color to his as well. All right, I'm gonna max. Let me max yours out. So here we're gonna maximize this, and look at that. Can you zoom in? Let's check this out.
This is what I did with that spare 3 minutes, because I finished it ages ago, so I ruined it with this.
Oh, he did. See, he's dropping skills down on everybody. He finished
So that's what I sort of. This is the 15-minute mark. No, the 12-minute mark actually.
Oh, so honest.
Oh, so he even has a layer to show when he actually finished. This is great. I love it. Shoot, I don't know what to say about it. I like how he does have this decrepit, he's obviously a zombie, so he's been I'm gonna coin the word corpseified. He's been corpseified, and this is a question I actually just recently had with one of my dear friends, who's also a very astute comic and reader, and he's a big fan of the horror genre, just like you, Sean or Shane. In fact, he loves horror more than I do. But we were just talking, the whole zombie universe, whole Marvel zombie universe. wouldn't if Doctor Strange, and we were talking about Doctor Strange specifically, if he became a zombie, wouldn't he just be like any regular zombie, because he wouldn't have the mental capacity to conjure up spells? He would just be his brain. He just want to eat brains.
Well,
And
in
so
Marvel
what-
Zombies, if they eat brains, they become more lucid, don't they? That's how they operate.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah. So if he eats enough brains, he can still cast his spells.
Okay, so he's driven to eat brains, but then he'll still be dead, but he'll learn, he'll acquire like more lucidity to like be able to conjure. Okay, that makes better sense. I
I
guess.
quite like that idea, because it would be a bit boring, wouldn't it, the comic, if they'd have just like been zombies going for 6 issues.
Right, that's like I haven't read Marvel Zombies, so to my not credit, I did not read it, so I was just posing that question. So I feel like the total idiot. I didn't know that, so I'm gonna have to go back and read it. But
it's good. The first series is really good. Sean Phillips did the art. It's superb. It really is.
Yeah. Well, is it as superb as this though, Chris? This looks
I
great.
don't know about that.
What is this? 15 minutes. This is 15 minutes of you doing this, and I totally like it. It looks really, really awesome. And I think in the comic field, we got somebody who drew along with us. So let me so, and this is coming from Victor Ruffino. Oh, yay! All right, so let me copy this to my desktop, and we will share it. And he actually went back, and I think he did our last drawing challenge as well. Oh no, he did. No, that was from Sarah. We got Sarah, who also did 2 zombies. Let me see. There's a third. Yes.
People always love doing zombies.
So yeah, we got. Yeah, I think Victor. I think zombies bring out the art in everybody. In fact, I think that's what I should have been drawing more between Dracula and zombies. I'm gonna have a renaissance in my art. It's gonna take it to that next level. Yeah, more zombies. Like Gerald will just draw zombies forever. All right, so let me put this into a preview for us to check out.
That's great, by the way, Chris. I really like that, mate.
Oh, thanks. There's a mini Dracula Easter egg in there as well. But
there is. Let me cancel this.
You won't. Only the people that have actually read the first 10 pages would know.
Oh, okay. We don't want to spoil it. That'll be something that I will look for when it's ready to go.
Yeah. So so everyone now has to buy it, and they might get the reference.
Yeah.
Shane, I like how Chris thinks. You got to buy the book if you want to see the Easter egg.
Yes.
So here we go. So here's some artwork. Check this out.
Wow.
This is Victor Ruffino.
That's lovely. That's a bit Gene Colan.
Yeah. I have to say, Victor, great interpretation of Dracula. We also have this, which is a zombie Doctor Strange. I like how it's half. It's like half zombie.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And then we got Sarah Samba, who's also draws along a lot with us, and she did her version, and she is a big fan of the manga Disney anime style. So I got this kind of. So, like, I totally get this. This could be something that you would see in a Tim Burton Disney.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So maybe he can make what was the name of that Day of the Dead Pixar movie that came out? I can't.
Coco.
Coco, yes. Like if Doctor Strange were to make a cameo in Coco,
could be there. Yeah, Doctor Strange's Halloween or something like that.
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah, so here we go. Let's see, we got a couple comments here. It's like, damn, Victor, that's awesome. So
yeah, man, nice one, Victor.
And Sarah, she says, Sarah, that's cool. And then here she also says, oh my God, we think alike, laugh out loud. I'm not sure exactly what we were. I hope we don't exactly think alike, but I think
which is what you're talking about there. Is she a Predator fan as well?
Maybe that's what it is. But I think this comment was directed at me. Any Underoos? Okay, I should not have mentioned the Underoo thing. But yeah, just really, really cool. Thank you guys for Sarah and Victor for drawing along.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah. So, so here we are. We're going into the home stretch with our last live drawing. And when we do that, let me share. I want to share one more screen. So stop. Let's go back to that. Oops. Let's go back to that PDF that I showed earlier. So hold on one moment and let me find it. Did I miss? Hold on one second. This is what happens when I have too many windows.
Too many windows.
Too many windows. All right. Okay. So let's put this up here. Okay. So our last live drawing that we're going to do is we're going to go back a little bit in time because we heard the story of Dracula, which is the current project that Shane and Chris are working on. But I guess it's a theme. When we were showing Chris's artwork, we were like jumping up. We were showing his current artwork, and then we went backwards to like his submissions when he was 16 years old to like a little bit later on. But yeah, so we're gonna true to that Quentin Tarantino style of storytelling where we go back from the end to the beginning to the middle back to the end. We're gonna do that with this as well. So let me pull up. Yeah, so it's all disjointed. Anyway, so we're going to show this, which is Hedrek. Okay, Hedrek is this was correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first title that is under the new imprint, which is Scratch Comics now, right?
It is.
I'm, rather than like me like giving my synopsis of what I think it is, we're gonna go jump right into the live drawing, and we're gonna let Shane kind of like drive that narrative in terms of getting our audience interested in Hedrek, because Hedrek is not a superhero. He's this is a really cool exploration in characters, is that because when I read it, it made me think of a lot of things. It made me think of the most, more recently the HBO series, I think, called True Detective. I don't know if you've watched that.
Right,
It made me think about that with a more psychological, supernatural edge to it. I haven't watched the other True Detectives. I heard they're trash, but I don't know if they really are or not. But I know that the first True Detective was really good. But I looked at the pages, I looked at the artwork, and here I'm just gonna go through this really quick. It's just sick. There's so many cool things here, and I don't know what's going on, but it's intriguing. It's totally intriguing. It's like, I don't know who your artist is. I'm sure you're going to tell us when we get to that, because I want you to give us a little bit of a lowdown when we start our live drawing. But this is for me to look at, as well as Chris, as well as anybody in our audience who wants to draw along with him, along with us for this last live drawing. And he has a very distinct look. Here he kind of reminds me of a cross between Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid games and James Franco. I don't know, but it's
I've
like,
not heard that one before.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at it, and it's just he's not going to be like Batman or Captain America. But he has, his uniform is this. He's a detective, so he has a suit and tie. Yeah, and he has the eye patch, which is very signature to him. But then here we have some examples of the pages. And Chris, I know that you've gone from like a ultra detail to ultra minimal back to medium detail. I don't know exactly where you are in terms of detail, but I look at this, and this is crazy. I think this might have been like another version of Chris would have attempted something as crazy as this. But just loads. It's like you could just look. I would study just this panel and just wonder what is the story.
Panel, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would just wonder, what is the story behind? It's like, I don't know if you guys have watched those Conjuring movies with the I think it's the Ellis investigators. I think that's what they are. But they had that room that's in their house, which is locked, that has like all those supernatural artifacts. And this reminds me, it's like, man, totally creepy. Would not want this in my house. But it's just one of those things. It's like loads of detail. And we were talking about building a panel or a page, or just doing an illustration, and not just doing it in the sense of doing a pinup, but doing something that actually tells a story. I don't know what that story is, but the story to me, it was just, what it implies is incredible. And I think the numbers, I think this was successfully funded, and it had over 187 backers. So there's a lot of people that believed in it. But this art is crazy, and crazy good. I mean that in a very positive way. It's just something that and here we got. I think here are the creators. We got David Hitchcock. We have Lawrence Allison, and I'm gonna let. I just wanted people to get a gauge for what we're gonna be drawing. Shane is gonna talk more about who and what Hedrek is, and then of course the creators. And it's called Night of the Mummers. And before we get to that, Shane, can people still buy this?
It's just funded, so it's at the printers at the moment.
It's at the printer. Okay, so the people that didn't do the Kickstarter, will there be an opportunity to get there will be? Okay, good. So that's good.
Yeah.
So there is hope. So even though you didn't participate in the if you didn't participate in the Kickstarter, you can still get a copy of it, because once we finish this live drawing and Shane talks it up and we get to see Chris's interpretation of this, you're gonna want to learn about Hedrek. So that being said, let me start the clock. 15 minutes, and I'm going to solo Chris's camera again. So let's get him on here, and there you go. All right. So let's draw Hedrek, and Shane, tell us about who this is and why we want to learn more about him.
Okay, so Hedrek is, as you observed, a detective. He's a chief inspector, in fact, if I remember correctly. Lawrence, the writer, if he's watching this, he'll probably say, "Well, you should know that, Shane." So we've got a writer, Lawrence Allison, who is a professor, in fact. And he works in his day job with law enforcement on interviewing and all sorts of techniques for how to get information out of people. And he's a really clever guy. And in his time working with law enforcement, he's encountered good cops, he's encountered bad cops. And one of the things he noticed was that all of the good cops are quite eccentric. They're quite unusual people. They're loners a lot of the time. And so Hedrek is sort of an amalgamation of that. And he is a bit of a loner. He's a very dedicated, compassionate person. But he's got some trauma in his past that's going to come up in the second issue. But he approaches these cases in a very compassionate way. And basically what's happening is there's all these murders going on, and they're all mummer related. Now, if people don't know what mummers are, they're basically people dressing in costumes to, a lot of the time, undermine and poke fun at authority. But it's all done in a very fun way. But these guys, these mummers, are quite sinister, and they're sort of going over the line, and people are getting murdered. And there is an element to the story that hints that it could be supernatural, but it's very ambiguous. It's very ambiguous.
Gotta get the book to find out, right?
Yeah, you've got to get the book, and you've got to read the series. Lawrence's writing is incredible. He gets so much in there. I mean, this first comic, it's 27 pages, I think, but it tells the story of a graphic novel. It's the storytelling is quite condensed, and he manages to get a lot of detail. And Dave's art, I mean, if you've seen, David Hitchcock, I mean, he is an Eagle Award-winning artist. I mean, he's been around for a while, and he's produced some amazing stuff over the years. And I've worked with Dave before. I published a book about 10 years ago now called Madam Samurai, which was written by Gary Young, who wrote the Harry Brown movie, and Dave was the artist on that. And it was a two-part graphic novel, and it was an absolute pleasure to work with Dave. And I always wanted to work with him again. He did a 4-page story in Dead by Dawn with Dan Abnett, and that was great. So it was when Lawrence came. Well, I saw Lawrence planning the project, and I at the time I hadn't sort of put my stake in, as it were. And I hadn't said I wanted to publish it, but I sort of wrote to Lawrence and said, I really like what you're doing. I like the idea of this. You and Dave are going to be working on this. I would love to be in there and publish it with you and be the editor and sort of make it happen. And it was just such a joy to work on that book. And people have really, like you say, people have really got behind it. I think it's because it's not a superhero. I think that's the thing. I think it's a different genre. than what people might be used to. It's quite an unusual genre. You don't see that many detective comics, you know, and you certainly don't see any mummer comics about mummery. It's quite an unusual subject, you know. But a lot of people are into it. You don't really, you think, well, are people into that?
You've tapped a genre that it's like finding gold that, you know, like no one's done it, right? You're like, well, that's okay. That you were able to take it to that next level. But keep on going. I want to hear more about it.
So yeah, I mean, we started working on it. Well, I say we. Lawrence wrote four issues. He's now written 4 issues completely. He did it in a very short space of time because he had the story in his head. And Dave is incredibly professional. He works like a trooper. He churns out the pages. We've already nearly finished issue 2. And the work he's doing is he kept sending the pages in, and every page was better than the last, and it was just so encouraging. It was just so inspiring to see it, the high quality of work. And when we started putting the book together and we put it on the Kickstarter, the response was just incredible. You know, people's comments and you know, and the average sort of backer amount was what intrigued me, because usually, you know, the average backer amount, you look on other Kickstarters and it's usually about £8 or £9, which is about, I don't know, about $12, I guess. But our average backer number was somewhere around a 20 something pounds, and people were going for the extras. You know, a lot of people were going. We sold original artwork, which isn't surprising because Dave's art is amazing. A lot of sketch covers, things like that, and it really helped to bump, you know, the amount up. And I hope that people feel that they've got really good value from the, you know, what we're going to be sending them, because it's not just the comic. You know, there's a lot of people have gone for artwork and extras, and I love all that. It's quite fun thinking of different things to do. And earlier on, you shared the other bit of artwork, which was by Neil McClements, another great artist we're working with. That's an alternative cover. There was we were only printing 100. It's a limited edition. I think most of those went with the Kickstarter. There might be, I don't know, 10 left, you know, for sale afterwards. We wanted that to be a special item. It's a virgin cover, so there's no logo on it or anything like that. It's just Neil's art. And when he sent me that, I just thought, gosh, that's like Bill Sienkiewicz, you know, it's like that sort of level, you know. I was really impressed with that, and it's just been a pleasure to work with these guys. It really has, absolute pleasure. And Hedrek it's going to be a 4-issue series altogether, and it's a really the lead character goes through the mill. That's all I can say. I can't give anything away, you know. But he really does go through it. He has to suffer a lot before the end. If you enjoy stories where the lead character has a bad time, you're going to enjoy Hedrek.
Well, I think you know, from a storytelling perspective, I mean, who wants? I think this is a universal. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not offending anybody when I say this, but it's like the Mary Sue character, or I'm sure there's like a male equivalent to that, which is sort of like any character that doesn't really have to like go through this learning journey or suffer a traumatic loss, or that is the impetus for them to, like, you know, to become who they are, the large to become to if they don't go through that and they just are given their powers, or they're just given their talent that allows them to solve the case or whatever, it doesn't it's not as satisfying, because I think as individuals, I don't think any of us have been given just a straight up ticket to say, hey, here's your ticket to succeed, and it's just going to be it's all going to be rainbows and unicorns from here. So I think that's one of the things, is that because we can empathize with a character like Hedrek. And aside from that, I think the name Hedrek, even the way that it's spelled, have you talked to the writers? Is there a deeper meaning? Is there a play on words of like what Hedrek is?
I mean, there is a play on words that was revealed afterwards, because The story is a bit of a head wreck. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So-
That's what I was gonna say. I got the head part of it. Okay, I didn't want it to be a spoiler. I was gonna like say, okay, Shane, don't say it if there's a spoiler. But aside from the obvious parallels between head as head trip, head wreck,
yeah.
it's kind of like it's like combining those words and making head right.
There is a story behind the name of the character that only Lawrence can tell that story, I think.
Okay.
And I think there might be a little bit, because we did as part of the Kickstarter, we did a behind the scenes PDF, which is going to be going out with the book for those who pledged for that tier. And there's some stories, there's some background information there, stories about the origin of the character and how Lawrence came up with him and all that sort of stuff. So I don't want to spoil that for anyone who might read it, you know. But there is a story behind the name of the character, and there's a lot of background actually, because obviously through Lawrence's work, he's had a lot of experience with unusual things, you know, some things that he could never talk about, you know.
Right.
And it's really serious work that he does. He's worked all over the world with law enforcement and people like that, and it's incredible what he does. But he sees this work that he does for comics, it's like a creative release, because his job is quite stressful. But this doing comics for him it's how he gets it all out, you know. And it's great. We're benefiting from that.
It's like, yeah, do more stress relief, because I'm just I'm totally eating this up, and you know, just the artwork. So does the artist did they do the coloring too, or was it all done by one person, like
so the interior art is grayscale, so that's all by Dave Hitchcock.
Right.
So and the covers are obviously in color. Dave did his own colors.
That's what I was referring.
Neil did his own colors as well for his. It's interesting how Neil creates his work actually, because it's sort of semi-digital, you know. He does some work digitally, creates an image, and then works over that image by hand. Because I got some of the originals. He sent me the originals, and there's digital stuff and there's hand drawn stuff as well, hand painted stuff over it. It's a really interesting technique that he uses, but he gets really good results. How he uses light to enhance his image, you know. Whereas Dave is very much in the vein of a traditional illustrator. And his approach, you don't see much of it these days, actually, the way that Dave creates his work. But from what I can tell, he does loose pencils, and then he inks those pencils, and then he goes back in with more pencil to create the highlights, the shading, the depth. So it's a really different way of working, but it gives a very unique finished page. And Dave's work, as you can probably tell, is instantly recognizable. You know, there's nobody draws like that, you know. And I like that. I like that about artists. I love working with artists who have like a singular voice, who, you know, that you can instantly tell it's them. They're not sort of just doing it by the numbers. They're not just, they can draw anatomy, they can tell a story, but they've got that flair. They've got that unique style that's theirs that you can instantly tell, you know. I love that.
Yeah. And, you know, actually, as we're talking about like being able to have this unique style with using, I guess, multimedia approaches, Chris, I think when we were going over your origin story, I forgot to point out that you are also like that too. You do pieces where there was a piece where you do traditional as well as traditional inks, traditional watercolors, and then you'd also do digital on top of that. I know this is a little bit off subject, but when we're talking a little bit about technique, do you want to talk about how you've incorporated something similar, you know, with your art style?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I just like to sort of play around with different genres and get inspired by different things and sort of experiment. And I very much like, I think off the back of the TV 21 annual, that was sort of my origin story, that a lot of comics in that period, they did a lot of painted artwork, especially people like Frank Bellamy. and
Yes.
so very much enjoy his artwork. And so just sort of, if there's one particular story, again, going down the rabbit hole of accidentally stealing somebody else's idea and renaming it. I did one of the stories I sent you, which is called Valkyries, which is an Aces Weekly story. It's basically the Angel Squadron from Captain Scarlet. As a concept, really like that, and I really like planes, and I've drawn quite a few planes in the past. So I just wanted to draw jets as opposed to biplanes. So
right.
And I was like, again, what excuse can I give myself to do that? And I like the idea of like an all-female security squadron. Like in the cast of the actual comic, it's all female. There's no actual men in the entire organization as well. It's sort of a cross between Shield, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, all that sort of stuff. So it's it's all like female pilots, female mechanics, and the commanders, and all that sort of stuff. And so and so when I was sort of planning it out, it was going to be very much in the same style as that Agent 21 strip that I mentioned. But then I just done the Young Reaper storyline for Aces Weekly, and that was a very loose style inking wise. But then I did that with watercolor, so I just thought I'd try to do a slightly tighter watercolor with the Valkyries, but not as sort of tight and like seriously rendered that Frank Bellamy did, because as well as sort of just frankly lacking the skill set, is the fact that he had a lot of time to do that work and had a lot of resources in terms of getting models made, people in costumes, and things like that. And I just didn't have that. I'd love to do that. Can I win the lottery, please? And then so if I could sort of really do that, I'd like to do a deep dive and do that sort of like process, but I couldn't. So I sort of had to sort of make it up. So I just sort of tried to do the best I could with a more looser style, in a way that gives me a bit more leeway to be a bit naff, really, sometimes.
Yeah, and that just goes to show the versatility in Chris's art style, and I think that that's something, again, Shane being the Nick Fury, you notice you could look at people's portfolios, you can see how things work, and I'm intrigued. I think Hedrek I was a big fan of True Detective, and when I was looking at the artwork, it just really made me think: is this something supernatural, or is it something that's just like you said, a Hedrek? Is there something deeper that's going on there? But this is a great time. I think our time has just expired, and I'm looking at what Chris did, and I have to say, it's like I'm speechless because I think it's one of the things. I don't know, Chris, if you go to many cons in London, like conventions, but just seeing what you can do in 15 minutes to come up with these really. I don't know if is it evocative or provocative. Shane, you have a better vocabulary than I do. I'm just going to say that overall, it is just awesome. It evokes a lot of when I look at this, I'm like really wondering. So let me solo this out, and I'm going to, if you could zoom in, I want to look at his expression here. And he has kind of like he has a bit of he's looking downward, and he has kind of like a confidence. And I think this is the thing that Shane mentioned. He's a veteran of the field. And I almost want to say it's like that timeless story about a detective. It's like if you want to go back to like Seven, which is one of my favorite, it's great. Horror detective suspense movies. It's like Morgan Freeman, it's his last week. Like he's ready to retire. He could look back on his career and go, nothing spooky or crazy. I think he even mentioned he'd never had to fire his gun over his entire career. And then but he has this wisdom about him. It's Morgan Freeman, whatever movie, he has the wisdom that he has. But he's talking, he's up there against a Brad Pitt who's like, he's the young gun. He actually requests to transfer to this really crime-ridden area, and then they're presented with this case, which is like the case of all cases. It's the case that totally blows your mind. And I'm looking at Hedrek, and I'm wondering, is it that? And
there's a little bit of there's a little bit of that going on, actually, because it is a bit of a mind blower. It's a totally different sort of case.
Definitely. Right. I wouldn't expect you to lift Seven. Totally take that. But what I'm gonna say though is I look at Chris's art here, and he's like a Morgan Freeman. He has in this particular look that he's posed. You know, it's a little bit from that worm's eye view. He looks like he has this bit of a confidence, and almost like, hey, yeah, I'm that guy. You know, he has a confidence about him, but this case is going to blow his mind. It's like, you know, who knows what's going to happen? You know, these upcoming issues of Hedrek, and I think that Chris, you captured it. I just the camera angle, and even though the patch is a little bit lost because, you know, just because it's going into that shadow, it's enough to tease it. It's like, I don't know,
I like that.
It's like, yeah, I think it's there because you can see
the strap
line
across the strap across the head, just to inform you. Yeah, it's nice. It's really
and
nice.
I love just your strokes in terms of just adding that little bit of character, because I think that's another thing about the artwork that I noticed about Hedrek is that his face, like every contour seems like it could tell a story. Like every wrinkle and little line, aside from the eye patch, you know, he has those deep, he has like a furrowed chin. You know, everybody has like a furrowed brow when but his chin is very, that's why I was like saying it's solid snake, James Franco. You know, he has that chin that kind of like tells a story in itself, because he's not smiling. You know, he has that little bit of a, you know,
he's an interesting character because he's in a stage of his life where he's not sort of at the end of his career, so he's not all wise. You know, he's still got stuff to learn, but he's in his 30s, so he's experienced.
He's not even old. He's not even old. Yeah.
No, he's only in his 30s, and he's experienced, and he's not yet at that stage, like Morgan Freeman stage, if you like. He's sort of a bit more experienced than the Brad Pitt character. You know,
right? He's in between.
But he's sort of in between, yeah. And he's still got stuff to learn. So there's people younger than him who he takes under his wing, and then there's more experienced people above him as well. So, but he's very much his own man, and he doesn't sort of fit in with the rest of the force. You know,
right?
It's set in a southwest sort of Devonshire, Cornwall. I think it's Cornwall actually, which is an interesting part of England. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of ancient stories and mysticism and all sorts of stuff evoked by that part of the country. So it's the perfect place to set it. And it's very, yeah. It's how it was described by Lawrence was Wicker Man meets Columbo. So see
that.
Yeah,
that puts all sorts of like images in my mind, and you know, I think that aside from seeing all the actual art from the book, seeing Chris's interpretation of it as well, you know, these really strong, you know, these blacks, and you know, it's like Chris, I'm seeing this is like a culmination of all those artists that you've looked up to, and that's one thing that I've seen. I can see those influences, but it's still, this is uniquely Chris, you know, just so much into it. Can you zoom out? Let's see, because the face tells so much already, but there's a much larger composition. You know, even just what you did with the edges, adding that little bit of texture, it almost looks like, you know, he's almost at a scene, and there's something gritty. You know, he's not I think that's one of the things about like George Lucas with the Star Wars. It's like it's a dirty universe in terms of like it's a lived in universe. It feels gritty, it feels real. Everything isn't shiny. There's layers of grit and story that's going to be told here. And I think that Chris did a great job with it. And that being said, I think there were a couple people that felt the same way because they drew along with us. We got, so let's see, I believe it was Sarah and Victor are also doing their interpretations of the Columbo meets what was it? Columbo meets
Wicker Man. Yeah.
Wicker Man. Yeah. I have to go watch the Wicker Man, but I think if I did, you know, once a year I get into like a horror flick vibe, and I have to go watch it because I'm not a big. I guess it's because it'll freak me out and I won't be able to sleep for a week after I watch them. But
it's a great movie.
I'll have to add the Wicker Man to that so I can understand what that's
about. A little bit bonkers though, so be prepared.
Oh, it's bonkers. Okay, that's going to be the Chris official review. It's a little bit bonkers. So let me share what some art from our audience that shared along with us. So here we go.
It's really cool to see what people do.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So check this out. This is from I believe this is from Victor, and I like the little worm's eye view thing. And
he's got the skull as well, like the cut
he
on the cover.
did.
Yeah, that's
He did.
brilliant.
And in fact, Victor and I kind of like are, when I show my artwork, we both honed in on that. We saw that skull, and we both incorporated it into our illustrations. But I like Victor. Victor's been experimenting. He's always a student. He's always learning things. He's a very accomplished artist, but he's experimenting with camera angles and points of view, and it gets more.
I love that, Victor. I'd love to share that on our on the Hedrek Facebook page, Victor, if that's okay. If you wanted to send us a scan of that, because I love that.
Oh yes, I think he would. I can't speak for him, but I think he would be thrilled to do that. But if just so you know, I will send both Chris and Shane. Our sister page, which is called the Art Show. This is where all this art is at. So
cool.
Just after the show, just go into the comment field and you could talk to them. You could interact with them, and if they're cool with it, I'm sure they would be very happy to contribute to your project and just to show their appreciation for what you guys are bringing. But here, I wanted to show the other thing because Sarah, she did a version too.
Oh, wow.
I was gonna say Sarah. Even though, again, it's like I'm so thrilled when I can see people's styles come through.
Yeah.
It fits within her style, but it's Hedrek. I mean, isn't it?
Cool.
I mean,
I love the shape of the head. It's very English, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
you know what?
David style as well. So.
No, that's so funny that you say it's very English. Sarah, and I just want to tell you, the two of you, how you know the fans that you're getting from this show that wanted to do. Victor hails from the Philippines, and he's
really?
up, it's like I think either 3 or 4 in the morning over there. And Sarah's from Egypt, so you could say that among your international fan base, which includes me in America, you also get Victor in the Philippines. You get Sarah from Egypt. So they really love. They love your. It's like, they stayed up to watch you guys.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's great.
So here we go. Yeah, so I'm so happy that we were able to get you fans, and I know that if you had a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign on, we would help move that needle as well. So just know that when you're ready to do Hedrek issue 2, come back. And maybe we can have we'll have Chris come on there too, and maybe one of your other artists, and we can all do more Hedrek shots.
That'd be cool. I'd love to get Dave on. You know, the only reason I didn't invite Dave to this is because he's a bit. He doesn't like going on live shows. I dragged him onto one once when we launched Hedrek. We did like a Kickstarter launch live stream. And I got him on there, and he had a great time, and he was so funny. And it's like, Dave, it's great. Come on, do another show. And he's like, I don't like doing it.
Oh, okay. We're gonna. I'm between the 3 of us. We'll all wear him down, and who knows? I think Chris is gonna have to do some stretch goals for that campaign. And once we learn more about Hedrek. So let me show mine, and then we're gonna wind down the show real quick. So here we go. So here I decided to not go. Chris, you're making me think like I need to examine my style. Maybe I'm being too. I joke around. I think I like to call my style the wonky style, which is overly detailed, overly scribbly. I sometimes don't get into like really figuring out which line that I want to like really focus on, and then I throw out line weights. It just gets all scribbly. But I've been trying to get in digital inks. But when I was looking or hearing your story, it's made me like really think about a lot of things. And I have to say, even hearing about Hedrek, I just wanted to do this thing, and I think I was inspired by like let's do the split face, thing, having a skull with a patch, to it, and it not look like a pirate. so it's not that, because I think that mysterious like I don't know what it is, painting or etching, the red etching that's on the skull. I'm so intrigued by that. I don't know what that means. Gonna have to have to read Hedrek, and I'm gonna have to encourage everybody to check out Hedrek so you can know what about, you can learn more about Hedrek, you can learn about that skull, just be able to understand, what it is. And you can just take in all that great art and just, able to like examine it and just oogle over every little detail and wonder what each mask or what every little detail that was put in there. So let me
is so much detail in it as well, Gerald. The story, not just the art, but the story as well, is full of little details, and it's really clever that what Lawrence has woven together. And there's payoffs later on in the series as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just wanted to say that Sarah, I agree. Cool work all around. I'm so happy that Victor and you were able to contribute. I'm sure that Shane and Chris just ate that up. I mean, because it's just
very good.
I have to say that the two of you, it's sort of like when people can fan art your characters or work that you're working on, it's got to be like just a crazy good feeling in terms of knowing.
It's cool.
That other people,
it's so cool to see how people interpret the different characters. You'd never imagine it yourself. It's a different person's way of looking at it. I love it.
Right.
I mean, weirdly enough, I've got a little bit of that with the strip that I did through a comic called Shift, which is like Cora. And then Barry Kitson liked it, and he drew a picture of Cora, and it's just like, wow, that's like great.
You know what? If I could figure out a way to pause time so that way I could fan art all of my guests' work, that's what I would do, because I'm seeing all this stuff. And it's like I want to go back and I want to do a better Hedrek, and I want to do like your Cora character, Chris. We only got to see just a tiny bit about what Shane and what Chris are bringing to the indie community. All I can say is let me scroll up to the comment field real quick, and I want to reiterate this. So here we go. We have Shane here. This is how you can follow Shane. It is in the top of the comments field, and I would love for everybody to like, subscribe, follow him on all these social media platforms so that you can know when Hedrek 2 drops, when there's going to be another Scratch comics release, because I know there's going to be more Dracula. Dracula's going to be crazy, and we also want to show this. This is Chris. Follow him on Instagram and Twitter. Check out his work, because we only showed a little bit of his stuff. Go check out his portfolio. I think that if you want to have somebody to help publish you, I don't know. You guys are I think Shane, you mentioned that you are in the UK. I don't know if you're if you want to be like a distributor for American talent, indie talent in the UK.
No limit at all on where people come from. I mean, I'm always looking for good stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So hit up Shane if you want to break out in the indie community out in Europe or in England, and then of course Chris, if anybody wants to commission him with the wonders of the internet, go reach out to him. He has, and maybe you can like talk to him and say, hey, can you revisit your Art Adams period, or maybe you can revisit your Brian Bolin period, or maybe your Mike Mignola. It's your like Picasso. You have like all these. You have your blue period. You have your Renaissance period. Chris, you bring all that to the table.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, I was talking to the editor of Shift a little while ago, because Cora itself was finished, and I did 2 covers during the first 10 issues as well. So issues 5 and 10, I did the covers for, and then I said to him, weirdly enough, I've got an itching to revisit Art Adams and Adam Hughes in terms of approaches. So if you need a cover or pin-ups in those styles, then I'd like to have a go at least to sort of like to blow the cobwebs off that sort of approach. It is like that. So.
It is gonna happen. It is gonna happen. Yeah. But I think this is actually a good way to wind things up, because we're talking about the future here, and you've already given a little bit of a hint of that. But we're gonna lump up this last section because believe it or not, we've been on the show for 2 hours 47 minutes, and I was like thinking to myself, I've been trying to like trim it down a little bit, but when there's a good story to tell with our guests, then you know what, I'm gonna tell it no matter how long it takes. But we got a lot of great audience participation, and you guys are the real deal. So this is the part of the show we call the Oscar speech, and rest assured there will be no slapping involved. I think the world kind of laughed at America a little bit when that happened at our award show. So I want to say that the Oscar speech here at Commies Cast is going to be completely germane. We're all going to have a good time here. So in this Oscar speech, I want to wrap up a lot of things. I would love for you to talk about your future. And we got a little bit of a hint about that, but I also want to get your final thoughts on things, as well as any thank yous that you want to do any shout outs to anybody, because I know, Chris, you want to say, I'm sure you want to shout out to your mom. She was a pivotal person in your life, and it is Mother's Day. You can definitely.
It's not Mother's Day in this country, though. We don't celebrate Mother's Day today.
Oh, you know, because you know what? In England, every day is Mother's Day. The Queen Mother. There we go. It's the Queen Mother. Okay, so we're gonna go a little reverse right now. We're gonna go with Chris first. So Chris, I'm gonna solo you out, and you can give your Oscar speech, and then we'll go to Shane. So here we go.
Okay, what to do? Thanks first or future first?
Yeah, you can thanks, final thoughts, your future, anything you want to talk about.
I mean,
in anywhere.
Sort of to keep it weirdly generic, just thanks to everyone that has sort of supported me in the past and even been against me in the past. That sort of caused a weird bit of inspiration. That sometimes that does help, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you do need something to kick against as a way of, giving yourself force to go forward.
Amen.
If everyone does sort of say you're great and amazing, then you're not going to be great and amazing. You need somebody to be angry against, especially in the art world. So it's sort of always a good thing. So even like negative comments can sometimes have a positive effect later on down the road. And again, like to mention, like with that, like being sort of serious, like with Mum buying me the How to Draw Comics the Marble Way, that was my Rosetta Stone to how to approach drawing. And it got me told off a lot in school because it wasn't the correct way to draw.
What?
And I was just like, John Buscema draws like that, so shut up.
That's sacrilege. That is sacrilege.
So, it's just one of those things where, weirdly enough, to me, that book was my sort of, my life raft in the ocean as such. Even weirdly enough, even though I've, read loads more books since then, like the Loomis books and George Bridgman and everything in between, that's the one I return to most, more than anything else, actually, is that book. And it's not got everything you need to learn how to draw, like no book has, but it has enough just to sort of give you a bit of a kick, a bit of inspiration, that is just one of those weird things. Like for me, that's my sort of continuous origin story. And like just to sort of go into the future, it's like as well as Dracula, I'm sort of doing a Robin Hood project, which is sort of just finishing the pencils on the second issue of that, and another big graphic novel which should be out later in the year as well. But I can't really tell much more about that, but that's 100 odd pages long. And then maybe some more stuff for Shift as well in the future. Everyone awesome. Go buy Shift.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that there's a lot on Chris's table, and I would love for everybody to like and follow him because, we really actually didn't get a chance to I would want to do a deep dive into some of your art that we showed during your origin story, and particularly like you mentioned Robin Hood, and we talked about Cora. But you can check it out. Go to his portfolio page. Send him some questions. Talk to him about it. We will have you, Chris, again on the show for sure if you want to come back on here, and we can do a deep dive on that anytime.
And Shane, I've got halfway through my origin story, so there's
it's to be continued. Your origin story is still to be told, and and it's nothing that Shane didn't already know because he's the Nick Fury of this, and he already saw it. I'm a believer. You are Mr. Fantastic, and we're so ready to see what you're going to do next. But Shane, this is going to be your opportunity to give your Oscar speech. Tell us about the future, what Scratch One is going to be, what they got in the in the kitchen, what they're cooking, and what your any of your final thoughts and your thank you. So here I am, going to solo you out and give us your Oscar speech.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks to Chris.
Thank you as well. I was going to do that.
just for being brilliant and just doing such a great job on Dracula. It's been a pleasure working with you so far, mate. We haven't fell out yet, but there you go. but it has been an absolute pleasure. So big thanks to Chris, and to anyone out there looking to hire an artist, I cannot recommend him enough. So thank yous. Wow. Well, there's a lot of people to thank over the years, to be honest. I'd like Andy Richmond, who I used to work with on Scar. I mean, he created Dead by Dawn with me. It couldn't have happened without him. And thanks to all the contributors of Dead by Dawn, who did their thing, you know. Thank you to, you know, Charlie Adlard for doing an alternative cover for us as well. I mean, yeah, it does sound a bit like an Oscar speech. This, I'm going to shut up in a minute. But it just sounds just terrible, isn't it?
No, it sounds great. Keep on going.
But you know, I'm very grateful, you know, and grateful to Chris McCauley and Dacre Stoker for believing in, you know, us to do this project, this Dracula project. I mean, they came to me, and yeah, so, you know, and big thanks to Dave and Lawrence for Hedrek. You know, it's a real collaboration. This is all teamwork, and you can't, you know, you can't do it without every single person who's involved. You know, from, like you said before, the colorist, the letterer, they all have a huge influence. Rob Jones, who did the design and lettering on Hedrek, has done a fantastic job. You know, there's so many great people out there, and I wanted to give some shout outs to some other publishers. We've got, like Chris has already mentioned, Shift, Adrian Clark and his gang at Shift. They are doing fantastic work, getting British comics out there again into newsagents, because Shift actually appears in newsagents, which is a big achievement these days. Also, the guys at 77. They do some great stuff. It's very much in the vein of 2000 AD, hence the title, the 77, because that was the year it was first published. And there's some creators in there that are really going places, like, you know, some real top people. So the British indie scene is pretty cool at the moment. So if the guys in the States and beyond, you know, check it out. There's some really good stuff. For me in the future, and for Scratch in the future, there are other projects in the pipeline. I can't talk about all of them, but I can mention there's one that I'm working with Chris McCauley again, as a writer, and he's working alongside Babylon 5 actress Claudia Christian to create. They're creating a science fiction universe, which is called Dark Legacies. And Scratch are going to be doing the comics for that. Again, it's going to be multimedia. So there's RPGs, games, all that sort of stuff. But we're going to be doing the comic side of it. And I'm really, really excited. This is the first time this has ever been announced. So it's an exclusive for you, Gerald.
Yay!
The artist on the title is going to be Staz Johnson, who was worked for, you know, Marvel and just about everybody, you know, all the big publishers. An absolutely amazing artist, incredible storyteller, and I'm exceptionally excited to be working with him on this project, and obviously excited to be working with Claudia and Chris as well. So that's like a future project for a little bit further in the future for Scratch. But obviously I want to continue doing Hedrek. I want to continue doing Dracula. You know, because I love working with these people and working on these characters, you know. So yeah, go out there when, you know, and support the projects. That's all I'll say. Support us on Kickstarter, buy the books. I'd really appreciate that.
That was a great, you guys nailed it with that Oscar speech. I'm just gonna actually add two little things about both of you that I just because I want to. We did so much stuff in the pre-show. And I just were things that I really just wanted to like put out there, because these are like the, I guess, parting thoughts that left such great impressions on me before we wind out the show. And for Shane, we were talking about and how you actually did other crowdfunders. They failed. You said there were 5 of them.
Yeah,
they failed.
And I think it's about 5. Yeah.
And then, you know, this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, hey, you know, oh yeah, you know, he failed, but it didn't stop him. These were done in the past, and he's come back with the Dead by Dawn, which was a crowdfunder, and then he did Hedrek, another crowdfunder, 2 successes. Hedrek, I can already say that I remember there was like 187 backers, and I always joke with my guests. I say, unless has 187 family members who just pitied him and said, "Oh, I will support Shane's book." No, that was 187 people that believed in him and wanted to support Hedrek. And I have to say that probably of those 187, you probably didn't know all of them. So there were complete strangers who were just blown away by the project and decided, hey, we're gonna take that on. That's a colossal feat, and I think as an indie creator, you're setting an example for the community. It's like, don't give up. You made 5 failures, and then you come back with 2 successfuls. That's just awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
Chris,
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, and Chris, I want to say this about you. We were looking at the your art during your origin story, and there was a piece there, and people who are watching this on demand, you're gonna have to go back and we'll look at it because I don't want to draw this out too long. But there's a sequence in there which showed it almost looked like it was a study. It had a single line, and then it was blank, and then the line turned on its axis, and then it revealed the sphere, and then it's building into this figure. Now, I only showed a few pages from it, but there's actually the whole sequence is on Chris's portfolio page, so you could go check that out. The reason why it is so meaningful to me, because Chris and I shared this during the pre-show, is that it was a response to somebody was sort of telling him, "Oh, your work is I believe was it overly detailed, or was too not enough detail?" I can't remember exactly what it is, but
there's not enough detail.
Not enough detail. Okay, but it was a challenge. But rather than, I think in this current environment, this current social environment that we have, where the discord that we have with people, it's so easy for people to just fire off a mean tweet, to cancel somebody, to totally trash talk them and say really bad and nasty things. But what did Chris do? This is just testament to what I've learned about Chris. Chris will take something and it'll make him grind harder. He will go back to the drawing board and he'll redo that panel to make the other panel look better. Just like what we talked about in Dracula. He will take a comment that somebody, and I don't know if they were being mean, maybe they were just making some sort of off, just a casual remark, but he took it and he said, you know what, I'm going to do the sequence and I'm going to show what I can do with it. And that's turning, we say here in America, that's taking a lemon and turning into lemonade. That's just taking a negative and making it positive. So, Chris, both of you got a positivity that I hope that we were able to share with our audience, and positivity translated to supreme creativity. We get to see that with Dead by Dawn. We got to see that with Hedrek. We got to see that with Dracula, which I'm so honored we were able to show those first 6 pages. No one else has seen that. We were able to debut that. So just make sure you like and follow them, because when those pages keep on going, you guys let me know. We'll be more than happy to help promote you guys and put it out. But I'm excited to see where that's going to go. And when those colors get put in there, because as talented as Chris is, he's not doing the colors. He can do the colors. He can do watercolor colors. I know that he could do it, but I think Nick Fury, Shane, aka Shane, he knows where he can put talent. Where talent can be best utilized to get the best product. And he already got Chris for pencils and inks and
lettering.
So,
yeah.
And letters.
He's doing enough, I think. Yeah.
He's doing enough of it. All right. So it's been a true pleasure. So man, like I said, I could sing your praises and keep on going for yet another hour, but we have to close out the show. So and I would definitely do it.
Doesn't happen very often, does it, Chris?
Yeah. So I just gotta know that when I come to England, I know who I can call up to get a flat that I can stay at. So when I
I've got a sofa over here. Yeah.
That's all I need. But like we do with all of our shows, we like to talk about our charity partner. Let me bring that up right now. So this is Golden Fight, and I'm gonna put their URL here at the bottom, and it's very simple. It's just goldenfight.org. We are not financially tied to them at all, and I don't want our guests to feel like they need to contribute at all. We just want to bring awareness to them. They are a charity group that is near and dear to our hearts here at Comics Cast. They are friends with the leadership, my partner Joe Tolliver, and by talking to Joe introduced me to them, and these guys, this group, this organization, this charity is just phenomenal. Now, what is Golden Fight? Golden Fight is an organization that I like to call is big enough and small enough at the same time. Small enough in the sense that they are not international. They focus on the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States, my neck of the woods, and that allows them to give a very focused approach. And what is that approach? This is where they are big. They raise money for families who have children that are dealing with very difficult diseases like cancer. So when parents are focusing on the healing of their child, inevitably they will encounter financial difficulties, and that's where Golden Fight comes in. Golden Fight raises that money, and in the past, here I was thinking this is where they are huge. I thought they were huge already because I thought the money they raised, 98% of that would go to the family, and I thought like that nominal amount of 1%, 2%, 3% would just take care of the administrative fees to run a charity, which is very small. But I was wrong. 100% of the money they raise goes to the family. So the leadership basically does this on a volunteer basis. And a lot of the people that, actually all the people that work with Golden Fight, they do it on a volunteer basis because they believe in the cause. They've had either family members or they have friends that have been touched by this tragic illnesses, diseases like cancer, and this is the bright light in a very tragic disease. They raise the money, they help families to deal with these financial difficulties. So yes, so check goldenfight.org, and if you feel like there is an organization that you'd like to contribute to, perhaps Golden Fight is that organization. So goldenfight.org, check them out. All right, so let me take this off the screen.
That looks like a great charity, Gerald, I have to say.
Thank you. If I know that you are in the UK, but if you could spread the word. But it's just one of those type of things that it's we are, again, not financially tied to them, and we just want to bring awareness to a great organization. But we also want to bring awareness to two great guys right here. We got Chris Geary, we Shane Chebsey. And I've been like, it's been on the back of my mind. I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly. It's been an honor and a privilege to feature two great talents from across the pond. I think I need to have more European representation, UK representation. So anytime the two of you want to come back on the show, the door is open. We'd like to tell the indie comic story, creative story, indie creator story from all over the world, and you can see from our audience. Yeah, our audience love it. They loved it. They loved you guys.
It's been a pleasure, mate, to come on here. I just want to say it's been really nice to talk to you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And we could definitely do it for another hour or so, but my partner would probably give me a hard time for doing that. So anyway, I want to welcome, I want to thank everybody that tuned in. Sarah, Victor, Long, Chris, Shane. You guys were just awesome. And the creators behind all the books that we showed on here, and all the shout outs to all the inspiration, from artists that were a part of our process and made us who we are today. I also want to mention, we talked about George Perez. George Perez passed away, unfortunately, I believe a couple days ago. And he's left an indelible mark on the comic community. And you can even tell among us three, he's definitely touched us as well. The comic art is, it often gets, doesn't get its due. But I think that now with the MCU, comic movies have been much more, it's awesome. We can call ourselves comic geeks and not worry about any type of negativity from that. But George Perez, he was one of the industry leaders that really moved the needle. He brought attention to the craft and made it an art form, and he's touched all of us. So please remember him and his family, and also remember here in America it is Mother's Day. So again, once more, I'd like to say a shout out to my mom. As well as my sisters who are also mothers, and all my relatives, all my aunts, friends who are mothers as well. We appreciate you. We realize that the world, gosh, I don't think any of us would be around without our moms. So
that's true. Unless you know something we don't.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's just the truth. So that being said, thank you for being on Comics Cast on this Mother's Day. So we will have another edition coming at you. It's always going to be on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. We love you guys. We love you all. We can't wait to have Chris and Shane on another show again. So until then, This is Gerald. We love you all, and we're signing out. Comics Cast.
Okay.